United States of America, the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Town of Manlius Planning Board meeting for January 8th, 2024. We're live and we're also on Facebook and YouTube and Zoom. So the first item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from December 11th, 2023.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of December 11th.
All right,
I'll second.
second by Rich. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. The minutes are approved from December 11th, 2023. The next item on the agenda that we have to go through is our organizational meeting. So we should have a copy of that for everybody. I want to thank the town board. They've appointed me as chair of the planning board. I'm Valerie Beecher, for those who don't know me, for a period of 1 year. I want to thank Joe Lupia for all of his years of service to the town and specifically to the planning board. So the next item on the agenda is the appointment of our attorney for Jamie from Baldwin and Sutton Law Firm for the planning board. Is there any discussion, or I'll take a motion for approval?
I'm gonna make a motion to appoint. Second. Attorney.
All right,
Second.
second by Judy. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. We have the appointment of Baldwin and Sutton Law Firm as attorney for the planning board. And next, we would like to make an appointment of Miller Engineering as the planning board engineer for Doug. So I'll take a motion.
No, I can make a motion to appoint our engineer as the planning board engineer.
Okay,
Second.
second by Rich. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries for Miller Engineer, planning board engineer. Also like to make an appointment of Lisa Beeman as the planning board clerk.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All right, and all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No, okay, thank you. Congratulations, Lisa and Amy and Doug. Thank you, guys.
That's your thing.
All right, and now we're gonna look at the 2024 meeting schedule, and we're gonna be meeting on the second and fourth Mondays of the month at 6:30 p.m. And also we have an application filing deadline schedule as follows. So I need a motion to approve the dates of those.
I'll make a motion to approve the dates of the meetings and the filing deadlines as explained in your document.
Second.
Second by Rich. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. So now we will go on to the next item on our agenda. It is for Botar LLC. It's on for a public hearing for the site plan, and it's at 7078 East Genesee Street, Fayetteville, New York. Tax map number 092-01-05.0. So we've got the applicant here.
Hi, I'm Mike Fogel, attorney with Fogel and Brown, representing the applicant, Botar LLC. The property, as you mentioned, is located at 7078 East Genesee Street. The intention of Botar LLC is to move their existing law office into the building. Since the last time we were here, they did close on the property. I think the last meeting they were about to close, so they did close after the last meeting. So as you know, we had applied to rezone the property to RM, so we're here tonight for the public hearing on the site plan application. There were, I think, one thing I wanted to clarify from the last meeting was obviously it's law office hours, so it's going to be 8:30 to 5 Monday to Friday, no hours on the weekends. The one point was number of employees. We did confirm they have 10 employees. there's 8 who are actually in the office full time, and then there's another 2 employees that are really just fully remote. So there's 8 employees that are more or less daily. The traffic study that was performed by Gordon Stansberry looked at 10 employees coming in every day, so it's actually more conservative than what it turns out to be, which is 8 employees coming in and 2 employees really being fully remote. So I wanted to make sure we clarified that, because I know that was a question the planning board had the last meeting. So what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna turn it over to Scott Freeman from Kepler Freeman to go through the actual site plan details with you. Thanks.
That's my connection at the boards, but a couple of things that changed, just to give you an update. The owner had concern with accessing the site, so we're adding a metal, probably a wrought iron. It's a wrought iron looking, it's aluminum black gate, 20 foot off the road, so we can control the egress. Usually what he's had is a lot of people come off of the road and drive all the way into the site, so that's something we added. It's within your set, so probably 15, 20 feet off the edge. And it's outside the New York State right away, so it wouldn't be any. Had a lot of people driving through the site who wasn't comfortable with that. The other thing we added
Can I
was,
ask, I'm sorry, can I ask you a question about that? Is there a way if someone does drive in there that they can turn around?
yeah, there's an
Is there enough
access,
room there?
not in the, well, in the driveway, they could pull in and they'd have to back out. But if they drove in all the way, there's a drop off loop in front of the building. If you drove in all the way, there is a way to turn around.
But I mean, if you drive in there and now you have to back out onto Genesee?
I don't believe there is a turnaround. I mean, this just
No.
came this evening, so
Yeah.
Yeah,
we haven't had time to look at it.
that's a definite issue,
Yeah.
because we wouldn't want anybody to back out on Route
No.
5 there, so if they wanted to propose a gate like that, it would be my recommendation that they have a backup spot for a car. to
That's
turn
not a problem. It'd be a 10, you know, it's enough for one car.
One car stall
20 feet.
space,
Yeah, that's
they
not a
would need to
problem.
do that, yeah.
Yeah, and while you mentioned that asphalt, originally the applicant was interested in taking out all the trees in the middle of the site. We had a walk out there and I showed them the maturity of those trees and talked about the cost. We redid the site plan. We will maintain all the trees on the site. We're not cutting down any trees. We're adding a few strips of asphalt to the drop loop. So basically there's a net, there's no net increase in pavers. We're also taking out the pool and the pavers around the pool. So we're reducing pavement, also reducing safety concerns. There's no need for a pool at all. So other than that, the plans are unchanged based on our last meeting. As Mike mentioned, we corrected it's 8 permanent, 2 temporary.
Okay. So yeah, we'll take some questions from the board before we go on.
Oh, there's also just, in your set also is a lighting photometrics plan. The components of the lighting plan that are changing, one light pole within the drop loop right in front of the loft, that's gonna move like 5 feet to accommodate several parking spaces. That's the only site lighting modification. The other two lighting items you'd be interested in are the 2 signs. They're backlit signs that will be placed along the road, and there won't be anything going up. It'll be backlit through the sign. There's an image.
And you're talking about 2 monument signs?
Yes, 2 monument signs, correct.
First of all, one opinion, I'm not in favor of 2 monument signs. I have no problem having one by the main entrance. I don't like the idea of having another one. Most projects of this size, you don't give 2 monument signs. If you were Fayetteville Commons or something, okay, you get more than, that's the first thing. Second thing, they're not even on your property. So it's not something we can approve.
Yeah, that, when we pull those back off, that should be in. Yeah.
Minor.
And just while we're talking about, there is a 3rd sign, but it's really not there's, Botar Law, it's on the sign, so there's two right-of-way signs and there's one building mounted sign. So to your recommendation, take away one of the monument signs, and we would like to maintain the Botar Law sign on the building.
And that's the half circle.
Yeah, I think,
Yes.
we'll talk to we'll certainly bring the concern about the two monument signs back to the client. I think, I see what you're saying. I think the difference is that the location of the buildings were, the entrance is much further down, so that was the interest in having the two monument signs. I understand your point.
I understand, that makes sense, I understand that, but it's, I'm just wondering. I put it by the driveway, where one will turn in, not from the.
Yeah, I think that's just to kind of clue people in, that's the property, but I'll bring that concern back. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I would agree with Rich as well, just because if we are, I'm still not 100% sure on the building sign, but if there is one on the building, it would make sense that then there would be one at the entrance and then.
No, we'll talk to him about it. He's been working with the sign consultant. They've been going back and forth, and even he's not entirely clear on what he wants, but I think this is, he does want that for those reasons, but we'll review that.
I also wonder if that monument sign shouldn't say entrance, because Braycott's right there. So what you're avoiding here, like you don't want people driving here, by the same token, you don't want everybody driving up Braycott and turning around in somebody's driveway because they've missed the entrance.
That's why we placed it on the west side of the driveway, so at least it would.
Right, but something that says entrance,
Oh, like, I know what you're saying, like a little 2x3 entrance sign.
something,
Yeah.
because,
The only challenge with that is, as Rich pointed out, the right of way is very wide, so the sign would be
Several feet off the road.
well, we wouldn't be able to put it in the road, to your point, because that's the DOT right of way, we'd have to be 20, 30 feet back. We could do it, I mean, I would like to do that, it's a good suggestion, like, we'll review with the owner, but it's gonna have to be in the right, out of the right of way.
And Doug, just a question, because I'm not sure. Does the sign have to live up to the setbacks also?
Yeah.
So it's gotta be 45 feet or whatever it is off of the property line.
does it?
No, not a monument sign.
Not a monument sign.
The monument sign could be right on the property line. To your point, we can't put it in the right of way, that's.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, if you move the monument sign back, you may want to look at that gate location, just to make sure that if you're gonna put it on that one side of the driveway, there's
Yeah,
enough space there too.
well, the gate, look, what we want to do is provide enough, for, the gate would be, the parking space would be at least 20 feet back from the face of the
Yeah.
sliding gate. You need another 12 feet to get the car in and out, another 15 to get in, so it's probably gonna be pretty close to what's shown on the plan.
So,
But we will, in fact, I don't want to put the turnaround in the right of way, we gotta get that back behind that line.
Okay.
you may have
That was in your packet.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's an example of what the lighting would look like. It's obviously not.
it's not the limit of the sign, that's just showing it. The lighting vendor provided us with that, especially share that document that Rich wrote with. What I'd like to pointing out too is, this is a night shot
Oh, that's an
of the
example.
sign. The limits of the page is not the sign. If you look closely, you can see the sign. So it's a night shot of the sign, what it would look like. It's a backlit sign. But the sign is 3 by 8 approximately.
Is that the monument sign would look like?
Yeah, it would be backlit through the letters.
Why does it, this may be a foolish question, why does it say James Alexander?
That was just a sample of the lighting.
It's an example.
Okay.
It didn't go into production
I
yet.
was looking for it, but you probably told us that, and I didn't hear it.
I'm at the wrong public here. Sorry.
Is that the way the building sign, the building? one would
Botar
be?
Law, no, that one is, apologize for not having it. Do I have that?
It's in the original packet, yeah.
The original package.
Well, I didn't see the,
There's an arched section of brick on the building. Yeah,
I just
that's
wondered like we wondered what that was going to look like lit up.
where He's having, he started with one sign manufacturer, he has issues, went to another, now he's back to the original, so we're still trying to get to the bottom of that. For what it's worth, I told my clients tonight, it was a public hearing, we're gonna give you guys an update, but we're gonna give a full, complete application once we're done with this, but,
Okay,
so we're not done yet. The sign package is not complete.
Okay.
But we will. Yeah, that. I think we're gonna use the example of that. Yeah, as far as it's kind of a custom thing.
Well, there's a lull, I'll go through my comments.
Oh, sure.
So, just starting at the beginning, I was looking at, I think it's great the way you modified the parking up by the building to accommodate the existing vegetation, which is such an asset to the property. I'm a little concerned that the one large Norway spruce on the south side of that island might not make it.
Right,
You know, obviously you leave it, you see what happens, but you'd have to limit up some for the cars anyway, and that would look really funny, so I would actually suggest removing that.
okay.
It's something for you to maybe consider, I don't know if you thought about that.
I was trying to, the main intent, to tell you the truth, was,
I know.
we started out with, you want to take out the whole
I
island,
know,
and
and this
we
is
told
better.
him not to, and he likes this,
Mhm.
but he's still warming up to it. But I would definitely agree with that statement.
If you really wanted to save that tree, then those, you know, those few spaces might need to go somewhere else. But I don't think it would be a total loss, that's a pretty old tree to begin with.
Yeah, so a lot of these trees actually, I would say probably a third of them are probably right at the beginning.
Yeah, or near the end, I mean, it's great to save trees, but it's also not great to
Yep.
save trees that aren't gonna add a lot of value for a long time more.
Yeah, we'll have that discussion.
Just to clean up some of the stuff, you know, there's some excess pavement areas where the striping has been put on the existing pavement, so for example, to the east side of spaces 18 through 22, you know, if that were to be saw cut and then that asphalt removed and lawn put back in there, that would really clean that up a little bit, make it look a lot more intentional.
Oh, I see what you're saying, where it has the arc, just do a
Yeah,
straight
just
saw
cut it
cut,
off.
restore the lawn.
Yeah.
Well, you know what, we have to do that anyway, because you asked us to put a parking space in. And I told Doug we're not adding any pavement, so we will do that.
I mean, and then the same thing goes for over on the sides of 9 and 16, you could just saw cut that off and
Yep.
have
Clean-
them see it,
clean
and
it
it would
up.
just really make it look more intentional.
Intentional as opposed to an afterthought.
Yeah,
You understand.
I also had the same comments about signs. I think it would be a little bit confusing and perhaps redundant and to have two monument signs the same size. I don't have a problem with having a big monument sign in front of the building. And then we had talked last time about perhaps having a smaller sign over by the drive that was you'd shown a graphic on it before, and I remember one of my comments was to put, there was entrance written on the north side of the sign, but given the speed on that road, it would make more sense to probably have it on the west side of the sign, so that as people approach, they see that that's the entrance, because if they waited until they saw it on the north side, they'd be too far past.
I think that's gonna take a little more study. We didn't like it on the face of the sign for that reason, visibility. We're pulling the sign back
Yeah,
away, but still traveling at 45 miles an hour, you're not gonna
It's-
see a
it's
1 foot
hard,
wide sign.
and, I mean, this is 10 scale, this is 20 scale. Sheet, you know, so that's showing the property line is like 34 feet back from the edge of the pavement, so to pull that back and then put a gate and turn around and all that stuff, that's something
Yeah, I
I
guess-
have to consider.
I think the signs will help. I don't think the signs will be perfect, but I like to put things in perspective. Botar a lot. It's a lot of people coming here know where they're going. This isn't a Chipotle or McDonald's where, oh shoot, I missed it.
Right,
You're not getting 500 trips per day. You're getting, we're the old mansion on this street.
Right.
You're gonna find it.
and they'll see
But I
the
do-
building and slow down and turn, I
Yeah.
think putting the gate there to stop the traffic and having a turnaround for people who are just being nosy or are confused is a great idea. I'm also curious as to what the setbacks are on all the other signs along Route 5. And if a lot of them are closer to the road than the right of way from existing
Know that answer, Ed? That's some other signs on that road.
I don't know the answer to that.
I mean, I would argue that it would be more consistent to go with
It's just that
what's
our
there.
experience with DOT, as soon as you put a structure in the right of way, they follow, the traffic
Oh, yeah.
impediment or the deadly fixed object, and like it's a sign.
Yeah, especially monument. So I get it, but those are
No,
just,
but the signs, the entrance, I like having an entrance only sign, traffic sign separate from the monument sign. That's
Yeah.
what our Client would like, and we'll talk to them about going down to one side.
That would make sense.
You already mentioned that you were gonna submit a full site plan package, later
Yes.
on. That's something that I think coming into this year, I'm gonna make a regular comment for people who aren't used to the board and what we have. 'Cause we don't have a specific checklist like some towns have of, the items that gets gone through like the EAF. And so, I think that's gonna be my first thing of like, but you guys know what we're looking for, so, then you answered some of my question with the lighting photometric almost, and I wondered if maybe adding, I don't know what the fixtures are, if you could still get them, but adding one at the west end of the garages by spot near number 9 and kind of up near 17, where it seems to be kind of some dark spots, might not be something that you'd want to consider. And I don't know if where the existing one is up near spot number 1, it's obscured by trees.
Oh, the one by the accessible parking space.
Yeah, I didn't look at them, I kind of know what they look like vaguely.
Yeah,
but,
I think that one's pretty good, because those are mature trees, the branching's up higher, but to your point, number 9 by the shed, we can talk to Michael Votar about maybe we do a building, something mounted on the shed or adding one.
Yeah, and then up by spot 17, that may be less of an issue, but that was just another spot that I thought might be dark. And
So
it looks like it is a little bit, now that you got one.
One there, and 1 by 9, so that's, okay. We'll
What were
work that.
the, plant species that you were proposing by the ramp? Have you gotten that far?
Probably,
You don't have to, if you didn't, it's
as a
fine.
landscape architect, like to go, 50% evergreens in front of the building and the other 50, deciduous and planting. We're still contemplating
It's fine.
a concrete ramp or trucks type ramp.
I was just curious about that. And then
Or just
that,
something low, probably low junipers or a low, cypress or something like.
That look nice.
Low magnitude.
and then when you do come back with the ramp and the rail, you'll have like a section elevation or something.
Yeah, we have to have a conversation with Michael before we detail it.
Yeah.
Do you want a concrete with foundations, or do you want pavers, or do you want tracks?
Yeah, it'll be a big deal for the entrance there.
Well, it's, the historic character of the building, I don't know if I want to put
Track.
tracks, and I don't know if I need want to dig a 6-foot hole for a small ramp, so we have to do that.
Right, I think that's, with the signs, are there gonna be hours? So this is something else I think coming forward that I wanna look at, is the hours for the lighting on signs. Is this gonna be
Put them on a
lit?
timer.
Is it gonna be lit all night? Is it gonna be lit until when? I think that's something on these areas that are,
Yeah.
We'll find that out. We'll
On
find
the
that
RMs,
out. Not sure. I mean, I don't think the intent is to keep it lit all night long.
but it's just something we wanna get
We'll find out.
documented and unless they have, a meeting.
The past couple of weeks, it's been tough to get the information out of the lighting manual. What I do tell.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions concerning ramp?
I think the other thing is, Scott, is we're starting to get this piecemeal.
No,
We got drawings on the 22nd, now we got drawings tonight. It's very difficult to review what we've got in front of us.
well, yeah, I want to apologize. to-
So
Yeah.
before we meet again, we really need a full set so we can look at this in its entirety. I understand.
December 27th, I checked emails in my office and he calls me at 1:00 and says, can you submit a new set of plans with the gate? And I said to him,
We also did get some requests from the board like during the holiday week, so we tried to prepare it as quickly as we could in advance of the hearing.
So we're not asking for site plan approval. We just wanted to give you a more up-to-date set. That's why we give you the handouts, and going forward, we'll address these comments, go over them with Michael, and we'll get some definitive answers on the sides.
So your next package would be a full site plan submission.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to come back in pieces.
Yeah, we were thinking of making a decision, but what we'll do is we'll do seeker and the public hearing, and then we'll wait for your full submission.
Well, if that, I mean, I totally agree with you, because on December 27th, he goes submit
Yeah,
the gate, I go, where's the rest of the signs? He goes, well, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, well, we need to figure it out.
okay,
So,
that's fine.
I agree.
All right. Okay, well, if there's nothing else, we can have Jamie lead us through seeker before the public hearing.
Without a site plan application, and we
Oh,
do
yeah.
seeker.
Yeah, just for clarity, there's certainly a site plan application. We understand there's a couple things we need to address, but there's a full submission, full site plan application. I think that was. a
We
little-
have an application, but we don't have a site plan.
Sure we do. There's a
Yeah,
full
we do.
site.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're talking about updates.
Yes, we're
The
just talking about
signage needs to be updated and completed. Everything else has been provided.
We talked
Other
about
than
some
new
parking
Well,
modifications.
The items on the rest of the checklist need to be submitted in a full site plan application package, but they've given us enough, I think, to do a public hearing.
Oh, here, accurate. Seeker is another question.
What do you think is going to be affected on the seeker?
I don't know, because they don't have the final site plan.
I mean, this is the final site plan. I think there were issues discussed about the signs, but I don't think that really impacts any of the seeker aspects of the application.
It's up to Jamie. I'm not.
Lighting and signage needs to be addressed. Those are the biggest.
The lighting was just to,
Adding some additional lights.
We don't have to do the seeker.
Okay, we can wait on the seeker and do the public
Now, how does that work?
Yeah.
We can do the public hearing.
hearing.
Do we normally do a seeker before?
We usually do,
Yeah.
but it's not absolutely required. But that's the way,
So would you do
we're
it
gonna do it.
after or
Yes, but
at the next meeting when we see
Yeah.
them?
I would say when, you're supposed to do it at the earliest possible opportunity. I think what I'm hearing is we're going to have probably everything. Maybe we'll be ready for a decision and we'll do it before the decision. Or if we still have questions and it's gonna go out one more meeting, we can do it next meeting or the following meeting. And,
It'll all be within 60 days.
it's all gonna be the seeker. So this, we're not worried about the 60 days. Let me just put that out there.
No, I didn't think so.
Without getting into too big of a situation, because it's not a subdivision, which is more specific in timing. So we're fine.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, that's okay.
So I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Well, we first need to make sure that we
Oh.
published, we
Oh.
said that we publicly notified of the public hearing.
Yes.
Okay,
And I'll make a
So-
motion to waive the reading of the notice.
okay,
I'll second that.
all right. All in favor?
Aye.
We, motion carries, we'll raise the reading. All right, now I'll take a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, public hearing is open. Okay, step up to the podium.
Sure. Hi, Bobby Winterberry, I live directly behind the property where the guitar law is going in. I just had a few questions. The first one, I just wanted to confirm, there's not gonna be any sort of access road onto Draycott, right?
Absolutely not. No new access at all.
Okay. The second one was, the parking spaces have kind of evolved over time from the original site plan to the new site plan that was submitted. And they've started to creep down towards the residential houses that are bordering the property there on the backside. And so for what it's worth, we much prefer the parking spaces up near the actual building itself. as they continue to expand, I can only see that they're gonna continue to expand on the pavement area down in the grassy area that we all look out as our, which what once used to be, you know, a historic, beautiful home and now is turning into an office space, and there's gonna be more parking spots inevitably, but to an extent on which we can avoid more and more pavement or parking lot, that would be much appreciated on our end. And I guess another point would be that if there's only 8 employees and 10 employees, but 8 of them are only in the office, I'm curious as to why there's a need for so many parking spots initially.
Sorry, was your address on Bristol Road?
Yes, 104 Bristol Road.
Right, we're taking some out on reserve.
Yeah,
Is the
some of the
screening
parking
there
space-
not at, well, how is the screening that's already there? It's like there's quite a few trees on that.
There's just those tall evergreens, so there's no actual, we have some aphrodite, but we look directly out back at the property. So it's our entire backyard.
Right? We have no need to address the questions.
Okay.
This is just.
Sure.
Listen. to
Okay,
it.
yeah,
yeah.
And,
Just take it into consideration.
if, yeah, and if they have the office hours that they talk about, 9 to 5
Yeah.
or whatever it is, it's not.
I understand that, it's still a parking lot though, which once used to be, you know, greenery and so. and
I don't think I don't think there's any increase in pavement right now. What's, if you're looking at the plans, what's on the red is banked spaces, just because of code. That they're really not gonna be planning on using those spaces, and they're not adding additional pavement.
But there's gonna be more, as they continue to expand. Like, I'm curious as to why the parking lot got shifted down to that central area versus where it was originally posted to be up closer to the building.
That's not really how that unfolded.
No.
Do you wanna look at the drawing?
Yeah, I don't have a problem.
As I'm looking at this,
So-
that pavement doesn't change.
Drawings showed all of this going away and becoming the parking lot.
Yep.
And now they're showing just reducing it to here. And then this is already parking. This is already asphalt right here. So right down here, this is already an asphalt bump out. And they're just striping it, so cars know where to park.
Okay, so these bank spots you're talking about are not at.
So beige spots, maybe you can explain that. a
Yeah,
little
I
better.
mean, if for some reason so there's a code count and they're meeting the code and some of them can be banked in case in the future they need to be built, then they would come in and say, we need to build the spots, and then it would be looked at saying, well, do you really need to build the spots? Right now, they're saying they're not gonna have a need for those spots at all, probably. And that striping, I doubt that people are gonna park there really right now from what they have said. But code requires there to be a certain number, so it's gonna be striped, but it's pretty far from where people would go in, so it'd be like the last place people would park.
Okay,
Well, the code actually says they need 29 spots. So like they're saying they don't need 29, they only need 22. And then from this board's perspective, the banked parking is just a conceptual sketch that says we have enough space here to potentially add those 7 spots that are required by code. But if we found out that there was a problem with them parking all over the lawn, then the codes officer would cite them, and then they would come back in and they would look at banked parking, and I would assume that this board would garner input once again from a public perspective to see where the banked parking would go if in fact it were needed.
okay, that's helpful, thank you. The last thing was just, we've talked about traffic a lot leading up to this, for this property, and I know that there's only 8 full-time or on-site employees, but there also be clients, coming through the neighborhood, and we obviously don't live in a gated neighborhood, and we already have people that we've talked about that speed through the neighborhood, and there's been a kid that's been hit, there's kids that walk to school, over 15 of them every day back and forth. We talked about, the potential to get temporary speed bumps installed in the neighborhood, and that was raised here a couple times, so I just wanted to see what the status was, or any sort of next steps that we would need to make that happen.
So you're asking about speed bumps on Drake Court?
On Drake, yeah, throughout,
Drake Court.
yeah,
Doug, do you know if that's a town road or?
That's a town road, so that would be an issue through the town board.
Yeah, I
To look
think
at
you,
that.
But our highway supervisor could look at that question,
Yeah.
certainly.
Yeah.
And bring his recommendation. They're not, speed bumps are not very favored
No,
in this climate because of the
yeah, when,
plow situation.
yeah, we talked about temporary speed bumps, I think, was what was raised previously.
it's, it's not ever that easy, honestly. They get beat up, they don't get picked up in time, they mess the pavement up, they don't, what a lot of times what happens is people slow down for the speed bump and then gun it right after the speed bump, and then you end up with bigger problems than you had in the
Well,
first place.
if you said, I mean, the problem's pretty big right now.
So people
They
who
don't
live
stop
in
the
cut
stop
through,
signs.
is this what, is
Yeah.
it cut through?
Yeah.
It's
And are
a,
they
it's a,
walking
cut-
to Mont Road?
what, yeah, the
They
kids
drove-
walk back and forth from Mount Road every day.
yeah, I think we're, with what they're doing at the entrance, with their signage and only having that entrance, is they're trying to avoid anyone turning onto Draycott from this particular property, which wouldn't be that much
That's-
additional traffic, but
That's not the way it works, though. Like, people take a right, and then if they're trying to get over the 92, and go back to Manlius, they would cut through our neighborhood, and then they would take a left onto 92 and drive back to Manlius. That's just the
That's
nature of
so difficult to do though.
So,
It's taking a left out of
Yeah.
92.
so the
just
concern
telling
is
people do it
that,
all day, every day.
your
Out of
concern
that
is that if
driveway,
a
but
client from
that's
a
not a
law
private
firm wanted to go to Manlius, that's the way they go.
No, I'm just saying traffic in general. I'm not, I was using that as an example. Traffic in general is already bad in our neighborhood, and people don't stop at stop signs, and they drive 45 miles an hour down Draycott, and that's clearly not the speed limit. So
Have you considered talking to the police department?
we talked to the police department multiple times.
What kind of response do you get?
They come and sit for 1 or 2 times, and they immediately get someone who blows through a stop sign, and then we don't see them again. So,
I see that as a problem for sure, and with all due respect, I don't think that the increased traffic that could be considered due to the law firm is going to really impact that situation all that much. I do respect the situation, it's probably a problem, but I'm not sure that this project's public hearing is your best venue to get that addressed.
okay,
yeah, I think I've heard you mention it at the town board meetings before, and we can certainly talk with them to let them know that the concern was brought up here again for Draycott specifically.
Yeah.
And I think they mentioned even like trying to get some, looking into sidewalks and stuff for your area, so I know it's out there, that it just takes time for sure, but, yeah, but like what Aaron was saying, for this particular project and this driveway, is a little separate from that particular, traffic coming
okay,
onto the
well,
road,
yeah,
so.
but I disagree, but thank you for listening.
It's important that you bring it up and that you keep bringing it up.
Yeah,
I mean, you can only bring it up so many times, so
What's the
Yeah.
speed limit on that?
25 miles an hour.
25?
under,
I can see why it's a problem.
yeah, I don't disagree with you that it's an issue, for sure. And again, I know I can definitely talk with the town board to let them know. And I'd hate to see you not bring it up again, and they do have their open podium every meeting, that you can sign up to get on to take a look at it for sure.
Okay,
And you can email the board directly.
Yeah.
we tried, we sent, especially the neighbor whose Kate was at, he sent multiple emails and notes, so.
Thank you. Okay.
Hi, are you able to hear me?
We can hear you, Erin.
Okay, thanks. I'm also in the same neighborhood with the Linnaberries. I'm on 110 Bristol Road, so just on the curve, just down the road. And I think the one thing that I would want to add is, I think one of the last meetings, this idea of this more commercial corridor down East Jenny, this is just one more thing that we're adding. So even though in this context, people have said that the increase in traffic would be minimal, this is a bigger picture. We keep adding more. And that was kind of, I think, to be honest, news to me that we're going to have this, commercial area all along East Jenny going into town center. I mean, I can tell you right now, in general, just pulling into our neighborhood at 5 o'clock in the evening is not an easy thing to do. And so anything you're adding along this corridor is going to increase traffic, no matter, even if it's not minimal right now. So I think that it's a real issue for us and a real concern with all of our kids walking. And I don't want to make our neighborhood a commercial neighborhood. I mean, I think, to be honest, when we add, more sidewalks, there's a quaintness about our neighborhood that we love and we want to keep. We want to keep our kids safe. So I just wanted to kind of add that context when we talk about everything and what the global plan is for this corridor and this town plan that has kind of went into effect in the last year. So I just wanted to kind of put that in perspective as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Is that it?
No, I've got one more online. Okay. Is it you again?
Oh, my wife.
Okay. There we go.
She's virtual. That's my This is my work.
She's sneaky.
Yeah.
Hi, can you hear us?
Oh, can you hear me now?
Oh, we can hear you now.
I just, on a couple notes that you guys had made, you mentioned something about the lights when you were lighting the sign. And as I literally sit in my living room here with a full view of that entire turn in with the future parking spaces and the back side of the house. So just to Bobby's point, the trees that are there are taller. So there isn't, in many instances, there or in many areas, there's not any type of visual stop between us and that house. And this goes the same for the property next to us and actually Aaron Hanley's side as well. So there is, do have, I just want to make sure the board understands, we do have our whole view is that round of that driveway. So we see every car coming and going. And all of those parking spaces that will just be outlined and hopefully not used much. So that being said, if it is something that becomes unfavorable, would Batar consider adding additional trees to that existing line that are there? Because they're very mature trees and probably don't have, any foliage until 75 feet up. So would that be something that's in consideration? And then with any addition to the lights, you also mentioned, hey, it's a business that ends at 5:30. Would Batar also keep in consideration timers on those lights? So again, we see the full lit up house and the lights as is, but if we were to add lights for parking and safety of the employees walking to those, would we consider a turn off time at a reasonable evening time for the families who border the property?
Okay, thank you for your comments. Yeah,
So in light of that, in looking at the aerial and everything,
yeah, we're all kind of looking at the maps right now.
I think that it might not be reasonable request for you guys to consider in that, well, yes, your business is primarily during the day. When you get your end of day exodus of your employees and everybody's leaving that parking lot and driving down the lot with all their headlights on for 3 months or 4 months of the year when the deciduous trees have their leaves on them as well. All those lights are gonna shine through the back in all those ones on Bristol, and then also all those homes on Draycott as well. And so that is a significant change to the neighborhood from a lighting perspective. And so it might not, I would suggest that that's a really kind of a reasonable request to put a line of evergreen screening along there. Maybe more of a marching along the back property line, but then on Bristol's side, but then maybe on Draycott, it becomes more of a staggered. What do you guys think?
You can talk to the client.
I mean, I'm at it, and I don't like to do that, but I think that it's, under the circumstances, hearing from the public, that's a very reasonable point.
In heritage with the property, I don't know if you guys can hear me, but in heritage with the property, the existing trees that are established and beautiful that are close to the driveway, there used to be a line that went in like along those trees that went further through. The old owners did get, that's my 3-year-old, did get rid of a number of those trees because for various reasons. Some of them were just old and needed to be removed, but that would provide some type of, even if it was staggered in those instances, it would provide a reduction of both noise and light. And then the only thought on your other, there is a set of really old heritage apple trees that's on the Draycott side. And I do think that our neighborhood really enjoys the heritage because this whole property used to be an apple farm. So it's a beautiful reminder when you're coming in and out of the history of the building, and the neighborhood itself was the apple orchard. So if there were to be consideration of some type of foliage added, I think closer along the driveway would still keep the historical, the history of the foliage to keep the apple trees there.
The orchard feel of it versus just plugging in some evergreens.
Aaron,
Yes.
to your point, over the last 10 to 15 years where we've had similar projects to this, there have been requests to varying degrees to screen. I'm looking at 2 or 3 sites where we have brought this up as a board, and in some instances, we did screen, in other instances, we didn't, but it was all based on public input that we received
Yeah.
as we moved forward. And it was kind of the same type of issues of, increased parking or, just a change in density of development.
Yeah.
There was another law firm where we talked about this, and then there's also the townhouses next to the golf course that also impacted the same area, and I believe we did put some screening in some of those areas.
Yeah.
So it's consistent with what we've talked about as a board over the years.
Yeah, I think this is good input. We don't have to make a decision tonight when we move forward with the site plan. It's going to determine what we want to do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking, and I would take it back to the applicant, too, because now looking at those, if you guys look at those 3 houses, south, especially south of the property and the drive, and then that extra little parking area, and really think of how much those parking spaces would be used, and also the lighting, like Erin was saying, and I can't remember her first name, Kristen, thank you. Kristen was saying, maybe some timing on the lights for that drive, into the parking lot, in addition to the screening we were talking about, but, because if the plan is really in the future to expand or to really incorporate more parking, and you're getting rid of the pool and that kind of thing, maybe rethinking a little bit of parking closer to the road, instead of back by the houses, just as a thought. And my other thought about Draycott Road that I'm gonna talk to the town board about, is that, there's that road, I think it's South Burdick, that goes by Starbucks, that then you get to past Starbucks and it says private road or don't drive through. I'm wondering if we can even look at something like that where at least the signage is up. I mean, I know it prevents me from driving through there, so I'm like, okay, I'm a rule follower, I'm not gonna drive through. So maybe something like that, so that they're not using your neighborhood as a cut through. Cause there's other roads that they can use to cut to the other side to get to Manlius, so, and back and forth. So, if we can maybe look into some of those things, but if you guys don't mind going back and having that discussion with him as
Sure,
far
and
as
then
what the actual usage is when it comes to
Yeah.
parking and lighting and.
Yeah, I mean, we tried, I
Screening.
think we showed 29 spots at the last meeting, and the board asked us to look at reducing it, so that's how we came up with this, but we can go back.
Yeah, and I understand you're trying to use the existing pavement, but if
Right.
it's really gonna be, if it's perceived that there will be a lot of usage of that lower parking area. And that it will be lit in these winter times, and closer to those houses then. But if it's really like, no, we're hardly ever gonna be using those spaces
Yeah, I don't
at
think
all, but if
probably
employees are
ever.
gonna park back there, so they're not in the
There's
front, or, you know, those kind of things.
No, there's no lighting proposed over
It's
in those
existing.
spots.
Well,
whenever
the-
there's-
I just mean on
asked
the
about it.
drive, like the lighting along,
Those are all
That's
existing
existing.
lights, one light's being relocated,
okay.
other than the 2 additional lights that Aaron asked us to add to.
Maybe even on the building lights.
Well, yeah, I mean, the
Those,
wall,
like,
they can put a wall
structure.
pack on that one shed,
Yeah,
you know, I was just
yeah.
looking at this, and if you're looking at your future 7 spaces, you could almost put them up here.
That's right on the property line and there's some great.
I know, but I
trees
mean,
there.
if it were me, I'd rather give a variance for that than do it in a
Fringe on
I
there,
don't know if
yeah.
that's allowed.
This is what we're trying to look at because it's an RM zone. It's not a commercial zone, so the idea is to blend in with the residential area. So we want to be mindful of the residents as well.
It wouldn't really be putting asphalt that much further to the property line than it is already,
You're talking about to the west,
like right where your no asphalt pavement area number 3 is.
that you'd end up putting, if you want, I could put,
I mean, just think about it,
you'd get 3 spaces over there maybe.
maybe.
I think we need to look at,
You can, we'll look at it, see, you could put one in where the 2 would, I mean, I don't know.
we,
I like to put in compliance spaces.
I know.
Right on the property, because I don't want to comment, coming back saying it's not compliant.
I know, it would be bad, but.
I really think this board
The pool.
needs
Yeah.
to take a step back and look at the pluses and minuses. Do we want a business to come into the area, to pay taxes, to expand an existing building? Or do we want to force them to spend money to protect headlights from 8 cars that leave at 5 o'clock at night? We have to balance this. And those are my thoughts. I don't have an opinion of which way I'd go, but I'm just saying, you know, this isn't a highway where you're gonna have traffic all night long. You're gonna have a certain number of cars, a certain period of time of year where they'll be exiting and their headlights are on. Do we wanna penalize the developer to make sure the headlights aren't seen by other neighbors? When that is an existing driveway, which I'm assuming had headlights driving down it before.
And will they all be leaving at the same time?
Yeah, I just,
I don't know, an attorney that leaves you at 5 o'clock, Jamie, right?
When I come here.
Yeah.
I get that, but I don't think that under the circumstances, a couple $1,000s to put in, you know, maybe $3,000 or $1,000 or something, and under the budget of everything, I mean, that's not an actual estimate, by the way. Like, to put in some screening trees to be a good neighbor is a huge ask, honestly, and I can confidently say at this point that I doubt that there will ever be any parking on the east side of the building.
Just to add, if you don't mind me speaking, I agree, Aaron. Initially, when you said screening, I thought you meant take the entire property line, put 57 evergreens.
No.
I think that's excessive.
No,
What I would do is I would line up clusters of
Yes.
evergreens at several key location points and look at this holistically, as Rich stated. We would add some spot groupings of evergreens, but we would also have a narrative describing when lighting would be on, when lighting would be off. You gotta look at this thing holistically.
Yeah.
It's not a Dairy Queen, it's not a McDonald's, but it's a bigger impact than what's there now, but it's not a huge impact. But the developer can put some money into this, but, you know,
Yeah.
I think we could do 10 evergreens, but not 57.
no,
We could add one light, but not 17.
Right.
And just to put things in perspective, the client originally wanted to take down all the trees and make one big asphalt parking lot, which would have that would look like an eyesore, because if you had one big rectangle here, you'd end up with 4 big light poles. Right now, we're keeping the existing light structures. If we had a big parking lot that's 60 feet wide, I'd have to go up 18 to 20 feet and have 2 or 3 light poles. And they'd be dark sky compliant, big deal. You'd still be able to see them across the field. So then give us a chance to come back.
Yeah,
The only thing I would say is,
Yeah.
is there any way for you guys to give us some feedback before the meeting? So if we're way off on something, or at least have some comments, and we'll submit it. Because a lot of stuff's subjective. We're gonna give you a full package.
Yeah,
For those of you who weren't
Yeah.
here a few years ago, some of our neighbors came up with one of the best ideas we'd ever seen. We were trying to screen the solar array that was visible from Townsend Road. And they were gonna have to put several hundred trees 50 feet high to screen it. And the fellow up on the hill who was looking at it said, why don't you give me 15 trees and then I can't see the thing at all? And everybody said, my God, that's a good idea. Now, instead of screening the thing at the site, screen it where the people are looking at it.
Yeah.
That's a much smaller area. And we did it as a matter of fact, the second lady who was the next door neighbor said, I can't use 15 trees. All I need is 5. You can give my neighbor the other 10. You drive down Townsend Road now, you'll see a double row of the most beautiful Norway spruces. They can't see that solar array and they never will. And the spruces were 8 feet tall.
Right, I think that's what Scott's
That's
suggesting.
exactly what he's
South
talking
Rockland
about.
has a lot of vegetation, and
Yeah.
those root zones go way out, so
Yep.
there's not even room to plant the whole thing.
No.
But there is room to do clusters. We can do that.
And on the same thing, as long as we're talking about it, maybe talk to the owner about taking a look at the lightings along that existing drive. There's also the opportunity to remove some. There's a lot of them there. Do they really need them all?
Paul, you've given us a lot to think about, talk to the client about. I really can't commit to anything.
No, I'm just throwing it out there
These
to
are
think
good
about.
suggestions.
Because when you look
Yeah.
at that, I mean, this is not people who are pulling into a place or leaving a place they've never been or don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think the client's goal is to keep the property as consistent to what it was and not make a lot of changes. We thought that would be better received than a whole host
You
of.
pulled out 3 of those along the road part.
Yeah.
Yeah. Think about it.
Nobody else?
Yeah.
all right, there's no one else on the public hearing.
I'll make a
Um,
motion to close public hearing.
All in favor?
Aye.
I wonder if it might be a good
Okay,
idea,
let's-
to just take a minute and coalesce around some of these things that we have talked about
Yeah.
to give the applicant guidance of what to do. So I know you're taking some notes, and did you have questions or, about kind of the different directions you've been given here
I think we.
tonight?
I'm sure that's pretty, yeah.
Do you get it?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think we're gonna hit 80 to 90%, and I'd like to, we'll submit it early, and if there's time for feedback before the meeting, we appreciate it. If not, I think we're gonna be very close.
Can we do that?
Look at it beforehand.
Can we,
We can,
if we can, if we have?
we can circulate, and then you can, if you want to give comments, directly to Valerie,
Okay.
but not in a group.
The whole, yeah, I won't do that. I know how to not do that, but I'm happy to,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's helpful, we have time to take it through the
Sure.
client.
I'm happy
Next
to help
up, we
out
got
by doing that.
It might be, 2 weeks is probably not gonna be sufficient time to get all these issues resolved realistically, to get this resolved and then expect feedback.
I
and
think
then
we're gonna sit down with the client, we'll sit down
Yeah.
tomorrow or the next day, and we'll
Okay.
get feedback right away. He's very responsive, so,
Mhm.
I think we'll be able to do that.
When do you want to build it?
He wants to be in there,
That's our submission.
I don't know
That's our
exactly the
submission
timing,
deadline.
but certainly
Wednesday.
early spring, early summer.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
He's renovating the inside,
Yeah.
right? He's fixing things up.
So it's-
realistic.
it's-
just-
yeah, okay. That shouldn't be a problem.
Board as well.
Yeah, just timeline wise, if you're meeting with the applicant, the deadline submission for the next meeting is Wednesday. And then we would need time to review, to be able to give you
Wednesday?
comments beforehand
It's 2 days after
So,
today.
yeah.
It's always like
for the
that.
next,
Please say no.
next meeting.
It's
So,
really hard, don't do it.
Yeah.
So we
So-
can't be on the next meeting agenda unless we submit by Wednesday.
Yeah, and then if you want feedback ahead of time,
He's-
That might-
he's fine.
not leave us enough
It'd
time.
be ideal, because we could submit this preliminarily
Mhm.
within 2 weeks, and then they could have 2 weeks to review
Yeah.
it, so 4 weeks would
Right.
be realistic.
Mhm.
And you
And then
can
we could be
still,
100% not, oops, we missed.
Yeah,
well, that's why I asked about when you wanted to build it, so, because this stuff takes exponentially longer than one wants it to. And when you factor in Stating all that, but it sounds like we've got that part underway.
All right, do you have any other questions? Okay, so we will wait to hear the submission from you guys, and then we will, if you guys want additional feedback before the meeting, let us know, or if you'd rather just go for the next one. Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Okay, our next item on the agenda is the Fayetteville Veterinary Hospital. It's at 8122 East Genesee Street, Fayetteville. And this is on the agenda for an amended site plan, for a site plan we approved about a year ago. Year and a half ago. And it's at tax map number 091.-01-01.2, so.
So I am still waiting for the computer, but I'm at Kepler from Associates. With me tonight is Rachel Capacity of Ashland Architects, and we're representing Mike and Mel of Fayetteville Vet Hospital. We're here for amended site plan.
Are these drawings we got tonight?
We updated drawings, we submitted drawings in the middle of December, and we received some comments a week and a half or 2 weeks ago from Lisa. And these plans.
These are the ones from the email, yes.
Yes,
Got
those
it, yes.
plans address the comments, which were removing the addition, addressing the SWIP, and the monument sign.
Yeah.
Detail for the monument sign. So. Yeah, okay, great.
Address the comment. The changes were dated 1/5. Today is 1/8. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
This is a couple days ago.
Well, I'll just have- when did we get these?
We got those on Friday.
On Friday.
We just, because the comments are so minor, and this is amended site plan, and we've already seen this.
Okay.
So we're really, looking at the, it's a site plan that was approved a couple of years ago, or a year and a half ago. So I'll go through my
Do
presentation.
you feel okay with that?
Pardon?
Are you okay with that?
Well, I have a real problem
Mhm.
when we don't get plans in time to review
Yeah.
them. And then we're in a situation where someone's explaining stuff and I gotta look over on these things that I haven't had time to look at.
And these drawings are all dated 1/5/23.
I see that 1/5, but we didn't get them until Friday, you said.
No,
No.
1/5/23 last year.
Was last
So
year.
the
No, it's
set
in
of,
it.
No, it's 1/5/23.
It should
Oh.
be.
It
It should be 1/5.
It should be
It should be
24.
It should
24.
be 1/5/24.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We received them on 5/24.
yes.
If you look down, right, revision 7 was
Oh, yeah.
12/8/23, revision
Yeah,
8 was
1/5. So I'm just, the point I'm making is that it bothers me when we get a set of plans and have 2 days to look at it. And anyway, I'm making that comment.
So this is the first I've seen.
Yeah, and see, my opinion is, if we get something like this on a Friday, it shouldn't even be on the agenda on Monday. And I'm just making my opinion known, that's how I do things. But anyway, let's go ahead.
So,
well, let me just say this, in the defense of the applicant, the notes, there were comments made by the board to them, asking them to change some stuff that they had already submitted.
That's fine.
And
Right,
there were
so there-
three
this
minor
was the-
things.
Yeah, this was just a
a-
response to our comments.
A outline was removed, a parking spot was removed, I mean, these are not,
So they
they
just
probably
did
wouldn't
those-
even know the difference. Look at it.
They did them.
I personally, I don't care, because I have to look at each page to find out what in fact they did change.
But they gave you.
I don't go by that. I wanna go by these plans, because at some point in time, they're gonna ask us to approve them. And I wanna make sure I understand what's on the plan before I approve it.
All right, well, let's
Well,
move
I guess-
forward. We can discuss that.
yeah, these
Word
plans
for
were
future,
approved
for sure.
before, and then we made, and I'll go through, what I have up on the screen is our starting point. This is what was approved by the board back in July of 2023. And what we show on the plan is a building that's a 6,100 square foot building. We have a retaining wall that's about 8 feet behind the building. They're 8 foot tall behind the building, so you can construct the building. We have a 25 car parking lot with this subsurface stormwater management facility below it. And on the left side of the site is the subsurface sewage disposal system. So that is what was approved back in 2022, or in July of 2022. And then as part of our submission, okay, and then this is what we've submitted on the 15th. This was, this building is now 4,000 square foot building. We eliminated the retaining wall that was holding the slope back. We reduced the parking spaces, or parking lot by 1 parking space. And we reduced some sidewalks, so we had a net decrease in impervious surfacing. So that's what we submitted, and that's what was reviewed by the board a few weeks ago. And I had, okay, so this was the letter I submitted to the board, which outlined the four significant changes that were made to the plan. Again, reduction in building square footage, a reduction in the parking space. Let's see if I can't really zoom in and see if I can read it.
And so Ed, just to clarify,
Yes,
the January 5th plans
Yes.
that we received that are here, the only change from the ones that you submitted just before that was that you took off the proposed.
yes, we
Addition.
removed the addition. The plans were essentially the same other than that, and we
Right.
changed the date, but we were off a year.
Okay, so yeah, Rich, the only change is they took off the proposed addition that we asked them.
That
Take
letter
off.
was in your packet.
So technically speaking, every page, L101 through L601 has been changed. So it says revision 8/15/23, but it's also dated planning board submission 12/15/2023, and none of the drawings are signed or sealed. Likewise, the architectural plans, they look like they have not changed, but they are not signed and sealed either.
I saw that, and I just assumed that that meant that this was not a final submission. That's
Okay.
correct.
It's final for site plan.
Well,
But
we
not.
require signed and sealed drawings, so it's not,
Right.
it's
So
not
we'll
acceptable to
submit.
me.
Yep.
But to that point, I mean, this is telling me that every drawing was changed.
Yeah, so
Right.
all
So-
those layers are on,
Yeah.
all those layers are in.
So traditionally, what we would see is we would see a note of where the changes were.
All right, we're gonna review the plans we have for
That's fine.
1/5/24
Yep.
that we have in front of us.
Yep.
And we will put them on the agenda for next time.
Let me get through the comments
Yeah,
and stuff.
yeah. So let's go through what we have, the highlights.
The other thing that we're gonna need is, we do need an updated SWIP. And I've gone over it with the board. The problem we have that is, we have projects where there are issues with the SWIP.
Okay.
And if we use the existing SWIP with the wrong drawings, our codes officer goes out and he's got these drawings and he's checking everything. And then we go to the SWIP, and the drawings in the SWIP don't match the drawings that are on file.
So you want the calculations all updated?
Well, the calculations can all remain the same if that's what you want.
If you're not gonna
If
change
you're not gonna
stuff.
change that.
Yeah, no, but we can put a date on there, we'll update the narrative.
All the
and-
drawings and all the drawings and the appendices have to all be updated, but I think that there's an opportunity to reduce some of your
I think so
SWIP
too.
costs significantly.
Right.
And so,
But if you wanted to do more, I mean, we're open for you to do more, right? So I mean, if you wanted to keep those same calculations, now, I believe there were some underground systems here that are
yeah, I think. you
rather
need to reduce
expensive.
those.
You might wanna,
We'll take a look at that then.
You might wanna modify this, but if you don't, that's fine with us, but the drawings and the SWIP just have to match the drawings that we approve.
Okay, we can do that.
I mean, that's the cleaning up, you know.
Yep.
cleaning up.
Understood.
Okay,
I do have
have
some
you
comments,
highlighted everything that's changed? at
Well,
this point?
yes, because it wasn't, from what we submitted,
Okay.
there wasn't a lot of changes.
Are there other questions?
I do, but if anybody else wants to go first.
Okay,
Okay,
go ahead.
just out of curiosity, has a, survey done then to see if there's need to be any abatement on that building? Is there any hazardous?
On the existing
Yeah.
building? Not yet, it's not slated to come down just yet, he still needs to occupy that space, so the new space can get constructed. And be full, he doesn't have any swing space, this veterinarian's hospital still needs to remain open.
So we'll
So-
build the septic, the leach field in the new building first, and then take the old building after that is completed.
Where's their sanitary disposal now?
It's, in front of the building, between the building and the
In the
road,
parking lot?
yes, in that general area.
Cause it's all parking lot. Is that like just tanks or do they have a field under there?
There's a field in that area.
Okay,
That's,
don't ask, you don't wanna know, right? So, have they done borings or anything yet on the building?
we've done borings, yeah.
Did you find ground high water or anything like that?
Groundwater wasn't that high.
Okay, one of the reasons I was curious about that was because of the cut on the slope on the back. In wondering, you know, if there was gonna need to be more dewatering back there, but I'll start at the beginning. I'm guessing that the survey was submitted on your packet
It
that
was
got
originally.
approved last year, because it wasn't in this one. Okay, so all that will remain the same. So on L201, with the water quality unit being downstream of the detention under the parking lot, I'm curious to make sure that the bottom of those storm tech chambers are going to have a liner.
Liner, yeah.
Yeah, because I didn't see that in any of the details. I saw the under drain, which clued me in, but I didn't see that there would be an impervious liner under there.
Okay, we'll review that.
So often that's not how they're used. Sometimes it gets kind of forgotten on the details. So that was one question. The utility pole, right now, the bubble, keynote number 5, the arrow's just pointing, but I think that didn't get moved from when the driveway got moved. Because I saw that on the old set that I've been using, because I know what the differences are, that there's some of the layout stuff didn't get shifted over.
Okay.
So were you expecting, I know that grid kind of tells you where they're gonna move it to, you don't necessarily get to say where you want it, but were you thinking that it would go to the west or the east of the driveway?
I think it's gonna go to the side that it's closest to now.
Okay,
Which
so,
would be the west side.
okay, I was just kind of curious, because there's a lot going on in there with drainage and stuff, that would be. The water line looks like it's coming from like a well pump house.
It's a well, yeah, we're reutilizing the existing well.
And then, is there gonna be a generator or anything for
After
them?
this fact,
So if power goes out, they're out.
Yeah, they
Is
currently
that a
don't have.
problem for an office like that?
Potentially, they currently don't have a generator, and they haven't had an issue.
Okay. This is just kind of a question, because I'm curious, with the septic field, why does it have that angled shape?
That is a very intricate septic system, because it's got it's a mount system, but it also has a sand filter component to it.
Yeah, so is that what,
And that's what that is, yeah, it's really because of the limited area we have to work with.
right,
We have to do a special system.
because it's gotta be high up above.
High, but we also, we just don't have the area to build a larger mound system because of the size of it.
Okay,
Do we have a health department
We have
approval?
approval on that, yep,
Good.
those reviewed it, yep.
I think it's great that you got rid of the wall in the back. And I'm a little concerned though that with a 2-to-1 slope, that's gonna be difficult to mow. And I think that would be a great candidate, that slope for, some of the, materials out there that are, become like a living, you know, like willow stakes, and there's all sorts of great stuff out there, but I think given the amount that it's north facing and that, you know, you've got a wooded slope, contributing to it, that would be a great spot. If we could, that eliminates a lot of mowing, it reduces your curb numbers, which could help with your storage. And it helps to stabilize that slope a lot more, and they can be really attractive looking, and I think that that kind of look would look really good with the building that you're looking at. When you did your watershed calculations, or whomever did them, did you, I didn't see the SWIP, I couldn't really find it, I don't know, Doug, if you looked at any of this, but how far up the slope did you include with your, existing watershed? Because I don't know how far this goes, but that's pretty significant, and I realize it's wood, so the curb number is fairly low, but still, that's a lot of water.
Right, I would have to, I'll have to check with our engineer.
And to that note, with that significant slope behind the building, there's only a foot of space between the finished floor and the high point of the swale.
Right.
And that's
That's at the worst case scenario.
the minimum, yeah, and that makes me a little nervous. But Doug should probably chime in on that. There's no basement, right?
No, there's no basement.
But
Slab on
still,
grade.
that's,
We have swales going in both directions.
yeah, I mean, and I was just looking at it from the high point, but that means that the water comes down and there's only a foot between that and.
But there's 15 feet of space between the bottom of the slope and the building.
Yeah,
So there's a lot of room there.
just,
Has there been a problem in the past,
you can't tell because it's new.
right, with the existing building? And what's the floor of the existing building?
They're kind of built into the hill.
Yeah, they're built, they're into the slope.
It's a.
So access is gonna always.
The old building,
Yeah, it's built into the wall.
it's kind of a mess. Anyway. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to think you can compare, but it's wet there. Let's just put it that way. But, and where are the roof drains connecting? I see the coming out of the building, but I wasn't sure where they were, what they were tying into.
Well, we have, the back there, just splash block to grade. The front, I think we'll have to coordinate with,
Clarify, we don't have any, it's not flat, we're not roof drains, we've gutter systems.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think we were just letting them, unless that tells us different.
yeah, that's something we just haven't gotten to that coordination.
Okay. That was all I had on that sheet, and then I wanted to do my real one, just the layout, so. You know, I'm looking at this and thinking about the use, right, and I see, I'm a fan of sidewalks, always. But given the use, I don't know that, in my opinion, that sidewalk on the north side of the parking lot is gonna be particularly effective. You think about people are pulling in the driveway, they're getting out with their pets, dogs, little things in box carriers, cars there, they're probably just gonna walk into the parking lot and walk down the parking lot to the building.
They may do that.
Like versus trying to close the door and then get back up to the parking lot or the sidewalk and then walk down. Like, and then I don't think that many people that would be along the south bay of parking would go across the parking lot to get to the sidewalk to walk up to the building. So it might make more sense to consider having more of an arrival point with your sidewalk at the end of the parking lot versus that long strip there, which I don't really think a lot of people honestly are gonna use. Does that?
Trying to save money.
It does save money, and it
money,
saves
yeah,
impervious.
Yeah.
I keep bringing that up because I think you'll be able to reduce your underground detention.
Sure.
With all of these little things will add up and off,
Yeah.
and maybe like one whole row could come off or something. But, and then with that handicap ramp that you're showing, that's significant, and it's not, the detail is not this representative, it's 9L501. And that's a cross sidewalk detail. So on 9L501, which is your accessible ramp, it's the wrong detail for that application.
Okay.
It's just the wrong block,
I got you. Okay.
you know?
Yeah.
But I think that if you, in wanting to maybe put the right flared ramp in there, and you look at how you could have your sidewalk maybe figure more prominently along the end of the parking lot,
Yeah.
that would work, you could work that in. Do you know what I mean?
I know
A little bit-
exactly, and more have the sidewalk extend, maybe down to the handicap striped out.
Yeah. And in that manner, you may even put the handicap parking down the north end,
Right,
because that's actually closer to the entrance than being on the
Sure.
south end.
okay.
But just those kinds of things that you don't really think about until you look at it with fresh eye, and when you're, just working out all the details. I just have a general question about this rear setback is shown as a 40-foot rear yard setback, and we're not seeing the extent of the property line to the south, but it shows it cutting across part of the property line, and is that how did that get that way? And is that some way of compromising the measurement?
Are you on 301?
It's
Yeah,
on all of them.
I gotta look at that, yeah, because it should extend up and over.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Sometimes things can get, like on lots with big jogs, they can get
Yep.
split or
Sure.
something,
Yeah, we'll
but I
take a look
just
at that.
don't know how that got that way. And then, again, updating the elevations, have colors and things been submitted, was that part of the original package that was
It
approved?
was part of the original package.
So that's all done?
Yeah.
And then, with the sign, would there be lighting proposed on the sign?
I was not thinking backlit, just like that kind of points up at it.
Okay,
Or at least I could.
whatever you want, it wasn't on there and I wanted to ask, and then as you probably heard in the previous one, we wanna see like what hours you thought it would be, the lights would be on and all of that. And then to take into consideration the speed limit on that road and the size of the lettering on the sign. The only other questions I had are comments were on L 401, which is the erosion control plan, and that the section between the, basically by the edge of the parking lot, there's nothing really shown there as far as check dams or silt fence or anything, and I understand that, ultimately the owner and the contractor are gonna take responsibility for those kinds of things, but it might be worth having some just shown on there. For, CYA and bidding.
Okay, so
Thank
back to the comment you had about the setback and the property line. Was it from when you were here before? There was some situation with the other property owner and the driveway. Does that have to do with why the
Not
property
that,
line is crossing?
not in that area, it should really follow the property line.
Okay, okay,
So,
all right.
yeah, there's a property to the south of this that was the former vet's house. And I think that's, there's no issues there with that driveway, that would be to the east side of this property.
Okay. All right. Okay, I'm wondering what you guys think if we need to have a public hearing for this site plan amendment.
Are there rules about that?
No, no, I mean,
The word is
if it's,
significant.
yeah,
Yeah, I think it's significant changes.
I don't think it's significant.
I don't think it is either.
It's getting smaller.
But the macros are the same. The building location, the parking location, the curb cut, the big items are the same. It's small. The wall going away, fine, but that's in the back. That's,
Yeah, I don't, in my opinion, I'm just one vote, but in my opinion, I don't think it's significant that we have to have a public hearing.
with the addition, would they have to come back? Is that why it was asked to be removed?
I don't know.
Yeah. If you did an addition, yeah.
We were just planning for that in the future, if that was
It was
why.
just really a mark to the owner that he's gonna be able to add on in the future. It's not.
So-
We weren't asking for approval for it, we just were kind of indicating that there was space available for it.
So would the septic, the stormwater, the parking, all of that
It's all
still be
sized.
designed for that additional?
Yeah, because it's still not gonna be as large as what was approved.
Right.
Okay. What do you think, Doug?
Could you provide us the approvals for, the driveway cut from the DOT?
Yeah, we have a letter from Jeff. And
And the stormwater discharge that looks like it's discharging
we have
into.
that. Yep, and then we'll give you the Jeff Bill's letter.
Good.
Okay. Yeah.
Is anything weird required of that? Because that well is like that? Just seems like it's a strange.
Okay.
Being a public building, do they need health department review of that or anything? I don't really know.
Some of these mention DEC approval, correct?
That wouldn't be under our purview, that would be coordinated review on secret,
Yeah.
wouldn't it?
Yeah, but that would be a question you'd ask.
Looks like
for
that's health
DEC
department
approval.
at DEC for that. We don't need to worry about that,
Yeah,
that's not in
I
our.
don't think it's ours.
No.
All right, so we're not gonna have a public hearing. The changes are not significant, if anything, they're less than what they were, the impact is less. Okay. So we will,
Not gonna turn it around in 2 days.
Please don't try.
So our plan is we'll be back in 4 to 6 weeks.
okay,
And we'll let you know, in 2 weeks.
all right, you can contact Lisa.
Yeah.
All right, great.
Have her email.
Okay, thank
Great, yeah,
you.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ed.
Okay, the last item on our agenda is for Twin Ponds Housing LLC. It is for an initial presentation for the planned development for the PUD at 5440 North Burdick Street, Fayetteville. And it's on tax map number 086.02-06.1. And we have the applicant here to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So good evening. My name is Brian Bouchard. I'm with CHA Consulting. We're the project engineer working on behalf of the developer. Charlie Brewer, who's also with us this evening. So just to recap a little bit, we spent the better part of last year, I think, starting in February, first initially meeting with this board to talk about the future plans for this property, and that kind of morphed into looking at what the potential of this property is, also some particular areas within the town to create sort of these smart growth development areas. And this particular property kind of triggered the need to look at, the ability to apply for specifically planned developments. We went through that process with the town board and also attended several meetings with the planning board to get your recommendations as to what our district plan would look like. And that district plan was formally adopted by the town at the later part of last year. So we are here today to kind of talk through what that district plan was created for, but that was really the written language, like the zoning ordinance for this particular piece of property. And the phase that we're kind of moving into now is our site plan application. So taking that vision of what the planned development district is and creating very site-specific drawings, the site layout plan, grading plans, landscape plans, lighting plans, for what this development is. And as we work into that, we wanted to kind of use that district plan guidance document and show you on paper what the conceptual plan looks like in terms of its access, its layout, and then share with you some of the developments that we've made in terms of aesthetics on what the buildings look like and how they're positioned and how they feel. Before we obviously move into submitting a very large package of very specific grading and planting plans and all the finer details. We just wanted to keep you informed of sort of our progress so that we can accept your feedback and make sure that it's incorporated as we move forward with those more detailed plans. So just to refresh, sort of the site location, it's right on North Burdick Street across from the Northeast Medical Center. We would access the site from the Northeast Medical Center's driveway, which is right in that location there. It would be an approved driveway, there's no access there now, and as you enter the site, you would wrap into what is sort of your first stop within this planned unit development, which was called for a mixed use area. So we don't have a tenant for this building, but it would be a mixed use, so there'd be apartments on the upper stories, the bottom floor could be something like a restaurant. We have allowable uses that include retail or office space. So that would sort of be the mixed use component facing North Burdick Street as you enter the site. The main access road would also come through to the back of the site, which is much lower in elevation. And the paved surface would end, and what the overall plan is showing is an emergency access road, that goes all the way back out to North Burdick Street. We only control the centerpiece of property that we're developing, and I know that you've seen other plans from the original, property owner that contemplated a development along sort of the southerly side of South Pond. Which could be anything, right? It could be, commercial space. They had a lot of little out parcels that were planned for that. And our intent moving forward before, they proceed with their project would be to make sure that there's an access way to get in and out for emergency vehicles. And what we've done is line that up with where they were proposing their site access. So essentially this would be a temporary, access road that would then mesh up with what would be, the future development plans that they may have to the south. If you want to scroll to we've created sort of a more zoomed in view of the development area here. As you get past that mixed use area, you come further back into the site where the access road would come up to what we call for the residential area of the project here. So this area has a lot of site constraints, and you can kind of see how it's bounded, by the entrance road that comes in, and then the property line that's shown in red, which is our property line that kind of borders the North Pond here. And then we also have the steep slopes that go down into Limestone Brook. So what we've done is use this area in kind of an efficient way to situate these buildings, which are 3 residential buildings. Very similar to what we presented to you sort of as a concept plan during the district planning process. Each of the 3 buildings would contain about 100 units. The rear building is slightly smaller, so I think it's 96 units, and each one would be 5 stories. So when we talked about sort of the smart growth concept and having a compact, efficient development that does add much needed housing, we would be using the bottom floor to reduce our impervious space by including a parking garage level on the bottom floor. So they'd all be 5 stories. The ground floor would be a parking garage, and the upper 4 floors would be our residential units. So we have about a total of 300 residential units in these 3 buildings. And you can kind of see how we've positioned them here, where each one takes advantage of the views, right? So this is the Twin Ponds residential community. Really focused on the fact that yes, we're set pretty far off the road, but it kind of puts you into this little residential community area down in and amongst these ponds. The 2 ponds the 2 buildings that we placed along the access road kind of give you that village setting along the access road where there's a sidewalk space along that access road, and the building kind of presents itself first. But the longer facades face south so that they can look over the clubhouse and at those ponds. And each one of them is L-shaped, and you can see how the one that's behind the other 2 is positioned differently so that it takes advantage of the views to the north pond. This also creates sort of that area in the center. So obviously we can't accommodate all of our parking within that ground floor garage. So the center space kind of forms the parking area to get to and from the main entries to the buildings, which are on the inside corners. Around the outsides, the perimeters here, we also have detached garages. This is kind of an amenity and a benefit that Charlie wanted to provide in terms of enclosed parking. So we do have the internal garage spaces, but then having the ability to have garage spaces along the perimeter of the site as well. So between each one of the garages and these detached garages, we have about 250 spaces that are accounted for as enclosed parking for 300 units. So it's not quite 1-to-1, but it's still a lot more gracious ratio than you would otherwise see some of the, even some of the housing that's right across the street in terms of the townhomes of the retirement community that's over there, which is strictly surface parked. So aside from the enclosed parking, we do meet the parking counts that were prescribed within the district plan, which is 1 space for every 1 bedroom, 2 spaces for every 2 bedroom. And then we do have a little bit more than that to accommodate sort of overflow parking, guest parking, and then some parking adjacent to our clubhouse. Right across the street, front and center on South Pond would be the amenity area. So the clubhouse is about 7,500 square feet, has its own little parking area. This would include the amenities in terms of fitness and meeting rooms, gathering places, things like that, along with the leasing office. And then directly next to it, we sort of have an outdoor amenity area too that we create for things like sports, dog walking, or even things like that. With this, we would have access to the water. There's some steep slopes and we're trying to figure out the best way to kind of get access to that water elevation and, potentially put a dock or something that connects the walking trails throughout the site, kind of to a focal point at that clubhouse. And then aside from that, we have obviously the things that have been asked of us for connectivity. So we have sidewalks throughout the development so you can get to and from the buildings to the clubhouse easily. And then sidewalks that go all the way out to North Burdick, knowing that we're in close proximity to town center, having access to the retail and commercial areas there. And also not forgetting that we're about a half mile, if you were to go north along North Burdick to the Erie Canal Trail that exists up there as well. So we've put a little bit more detail into this concept from what you've seen before, but it's substantially similar. But we've also worked with the architect, Beatty Design, to come up with an aesthetic of sort of the residential building. And there's basically, the building kind of looks the same in some of the options that we submitted to you. It's really a matter of sort of color palette. And then when you really look into it, some of the fenestration of how we're working with, like, for instance, the garage. It's not a dungeon with steel bars. It's a stone water table with residential style windows. If you look very closely, you'd still see a car in there, but it's still kind of, as you approach the project, would look residential and aesthetic along the ground floor, even though we're parking it. The options that you see are either color palette for dark gray, dark white. There's some tan color options that we're still trying to work through. And I think maybe we have an opinion of what we think is best, but also some of the things that you notice on, like the railings and balconies in different colors. Obviously fenestration to the roof, different roof lines and ridge lines, differentiating itself from the end caps. And then also just that it's not a long blank facade where we have sort of these context and relief happening sort of along the building too, so that there's different planes that you're looking down for each one of the building modules there. Basically, stone water table, vinyl sided, or some type of hardy plank or vinyl siding is what we're thinking about for the building materials, which we haven't picked yet, trying to work through sort of the aesthetic and get the color palette figured out that matches sort of the project. And what we'd like to do is obviously get your feedback, because the next package that you get will be a very detailed package. So trying to make sure that yes, we've captured what the vision of the district plan is in terms of the layout, walkability, things that you might not see on the plan that you want to make sure are incorporated into the plan, and then get some reactions for the direction of the aesthetics of the building, because the next step for that would be selection of building materials, floor plans, unit layouts, et cetera, for our site plan submission as well.
I would be interested possibly for this board, since it's the first time we've seen a project of this scope and it, the PUD district plan, that each of these items that has been requested by the town board be included, that we get a narrative of, like, the walkability. This is walkable because we've got this path here, this thing there, this, something that's going to address each of those things. So that it's a big project, and it's everybody going down, well, let's see where it's walkable, and then you're trying to find the walking. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Just to highlight the different.
I think with our cover letter, we can write, sort of a project narrative that we can add to and develop upon as we get comments as well, because there's a lot of other things that aren't just maybe bullet points of the district plan. We've also talked with Aquep in terms of the sanitary sewer service.
Absolutely.
And looking at things with Doug in terms of how we offset the sewer usage for the project.
Right.
All those interagency coordinations, what we've talked about with DOT, future traffic studies, having that memorialized within a project narrative that we can add to is certainly something we can give to you.
Right, I mean, this is concept, right? So there's a lot that needs to come forward. What's your plan? What's your timeline?
Obviously, I think we have more than one meeting to go through with the planning board.
I mean, when do you want to put a shovel in the ground?
Say, I bet it.
So, if the stars align this year.
Yeah, it was in
this
the,
year, like December 2024, or this
Well,
year, like
later-
March of
Like,
2023?
later this year, because,
Mhm.
and once we get through this, there's a whole financing aspect that takes
Mhm.
months.
Mhm.
So, and design and all that stuff,
Right,
and depending where interest rates go, so it might be this year, we might hold up until next year.
I mean, no one's looking to purposely delay, but just trying to get an idea of how frantic.
I think it was this summer through 2027.
Oh, yeah, that was a year ago.
Lisa, were you able to send us the district plan?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's in an email.
it's in an email from.
I don't know the answer to this.
May.
I have a copy of it.
We'll keep you shoveling in May.
One of the things that the,
1229.
1229, I didn't see it.
one of the things that
I
the
got that.
applicant has asked for is a modification of the subdivision. Have we done that?
So,
Sorry about that.
It's to move the lot line.
Oh, no, we're good. So we're gonna stay with the subdivision plan that's already been approved and filed.
Okay, so part of that time will be with the other owner. Okay.
So I can show you here.
and
So
I,
the red line,
Yeah, the red line
Change a
shown
little.
here is the,
So, correct, so you can see the red line here.
Mhm.
So that matches the current subdivision plan that's been approved and filed.
correct,
So C100 is correct.
yes, the red highlight is the approved subdivision line,
okay.
which I think was from last year when the seller came.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah, I know we,
Yeah, no,
okay.
I worked it out, so.
One of the things that we had asked Lisa to give us is the actual resolution that adopted the PUD plan.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I read that was in it, really bothered me. Because it specifically says, the Manlius Planning Board recommended that the town board adopt the district plan with modifications, all of which have been incorporated by the town board.
Well, that is what, the modifications that we requested are all in here.
Okay, what about the 25 acre modification or minimum lot size? That was in the original law, I think, and they took that out.
Yes, but this was a recommendation on the PD.
On this
PUD,
specific
yeah.
PUD.
Yeah.
Okay. There's some
Because they're
typos.
unique, right?
This
Yeah.
is unique just to this project.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, the PUD says it's a 52 acre project. The application says 54. Was this anticipation of modifying that lot line?
I think it was the PUD application now, I think was probably, that calculation was probably done by me and not by him. So this is probably more accurate. And it was really that north line, there were two different lines that we were probably going off of.
Okay,
Now that the property line has been finalized and settled on,
okay.
so, we can change.
I mean, it's not a big deal. I just wanted to, I'm trying to clarify stuff.
Can I ask what, I'm just curious, it's not, just curious as to, I know before there was like townhome type buildings with the other stuff, was it due to like the
Space.
land and the contours and stuff?
Yeah.
Is that why?
The efficiency of that unit and where we were placing it, it kind of obstructed views. It also caused people to have to physically back out onto this main access road. And because those townhomes were the first thing that you were passing,
Yeah,
it wasn't easy to tuck them in the rear of the project or something. So the focus was to make the apartment buildings work and function,
mhm,
and that these, townhomes, I think there was only 4 or 5 buildings and they were like 3 or 4 units each.
yeah,
They would really be more of an encumbrance than anything. On top of having to build them on the steep slope and some of the issues that we had with constructability, it was basically trying to make sure that the access road functioned as a roadway and people weren't trying to back in and out of it.
yeah, I mean, I kind of like the green space up in the front and what people will see going by. With the 3,000 square foot mixed use building, realistically, how many spaces would be there for the non-residential?
The non-residential, we have 50 spaces for the mixed use.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean parking, I mean, like actual, tenants.
I guess we don't know. The building could be bigger, right? It could be
Oh,
4,000 or
okay.
5,000 square feet if it was to be shared between an ice cream store and a coffee shop or something like that. It's really available for sort of what the best use is, and we have the allowable uses that were prescribed within the district plan, so there isn't a real footprint for that yet, but the use area exists, and we want to make sure that we accomplish things like utility services, impervious space, stormwater management, so that it can more or less be built as an out parcel once there's a known, because we don't want to just build a vanilla box and have it not be the right size either. Right.
Gene, in the seeker. The town board went through seeker and made some,
Yeah, but we have to do new seeker,
do we do seeker also?
correct?
Okay, because one of the things that they came up with, the action, which is this planned development.
Right.
The act will not encourage or attract large numbers of people to a place or places for more than a few days compared to the number of people who would come to such absent the action. Well, obviously, there's gonna be a ton of people that come.
Absent the action.
The action, the original action was the
The PUD.
PUD. This is like pretend, other than the fact that that's our zoning guidance.
Yeah.
We're in a brand new, that, you know, stormwater, you know, traffic and everything. Brand new.
But how can they come to a determination like that?
Well, we're going to.
Nobody's gonna, nobody more,
No, the town board.
right,
Because they're only doing the legislation. It really, all they did was legislation.
okay. Then if you can explain to me the conclusions that came with segmentation.
Yes, that we were doing a segmented seeker. So you're not gonna, they're saying, here's the district plan, and now we're gonna do that portion of it. This board is going to do the site plan and everything having to do with site plan.
But there's we have to abide by segmentation.
No, it's already been determined that this is where where everything relating to this project is gonna happen on seeker.
Yeah, so to say it another way, you will have full control over every question in the full EAF based on the project specifics. Looking at what the town board did, as Jamie said, they just looked at the idea of implementing a new zoning that allows for a new use. So one example would be on the site. So one example would be traffic. When they looked at the traffic question, they said that in creating a new residential community, there will be traffic impacts, but we as the town board in adopting this new district plan assume that the traffic impacts will be mitigated to a point when they're acceptable to the DOT and the town, and signalized access roads in and out. It would be your job now before site plan approval to make sure that the traffic impacts that are memorialized within a study, for instance, meet their finding as they segmented it, right? Does that make sense?
No, I'm still confused.
It's an allowable segmentation of the project.
Yeah, they could
It's
not have,
allowable, and how is it allowed? I mean,
It is.
Because it makes it clean and neat.
It is, it's allowable to take a project like this and it's a different thing, it's legislation, and this is.
I like this project. I think it's a great use of the land.
Yep.
And I'm just trying to make sure we're doing it properly, because we've had other areas that we were always concerned about segmentation and looking at one property, not the other.
Yep.
And we've got commercial uses in one end of this property, residential, open spaces.
Well, this is a separate lot,
Yeah, we'll be looking at that separately.
it's a separate lot now.
I know it feels weird, but this is the right way to do it.
Okay.
This is the way it's done
It's
everywhere.
a good way
It's
to
just
do
the
it, by
first
the way.
time now.
It's a good way to do it.
It is a
because
separate lot. I get that.
It's a separate lot, so we don't have to worry about any of the rest of those in the segmentation question. The question is, was there segmentation because the town board looked at just certain aspects. Now it's up to us to look at this. You know, it's a zone change. Let's say we change the zone to R1. You know, or then we would,
Don't confuse
and
it.
I'm just saying, let's say, you could take any zone, just say, we changed it to CA. That's a separate thing than what we're doing
Yeah,
here.
their finding was that the use is appropriate for the land, but they didn't look at where a driveway was, or where a parking space was, or where the
Or how
stormwater is
traffic-
managed.
Right.
They just said, the land is appropriate for a residential plan unit development. And we are deferring anything that has to do with the environmental review of where the stormwater is going, how you're getting sewer service, how the traffic's being mitigated to the site plan application, which is where we're at today.
Okay, I've said from the beginning that this is the perfect place for PUD. I mean, it makes total sense. It's a unique property. It's got aspects that should be part of a PUD and work with the developer. I have no problem with that. So I think that's good. I guess I'll say this even though probably I shouldn't, but taking the 25 acre requirement out of the PUD law was bad because you just threw the whole zoning book out.
Well,
That's my opinion.
that's a story for another day.
It is, but I mean, that bothers me, that bothers me.
We'll note it.
Okay,
Okay, so you have some feedback?
I do. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm really glad that you came back. And thank you for taking into consideration a lot of the comments and things that we made last time. Like, for example, the not backing out under the driveway thing. Like, that's huge. And
I think the orientation was for your comments too.
yeah, like I think that it's definitely progressing into the thing. Now, I just have a couple questions on the seeker itself before we go. On page 7, J4, what is shared, does the proposed action include any shared use parking? Honestly, I can't remember exactly what that is.
So we have a few, right, that you could qualify as shared parking. One is that we're providing parking at the clubhouse. The clubhouse could either be for people
Oh, okay.
interested in leasing, or it could be for overflow for guests. Plus you have this mixed use area that we didn't wanna specifically identify a parking lot for the, you know, there's probably 4 or 5 residential units versus a commercial use. So our intent would be to provide that to shared.
Got it. The other one was on page 10, E, D, I. Would the YMCA count for that?
Or for an adjacent recreational use or
When it's
something.
in
Yeah,
1,500 feet, does it have to be, like, could it be from the lower end of your parcel? Because that would count.
it could be. Yeah,
But-
that's fair.
I'm just curious. I don't think it changes anything. It was just, it got me thinking.
Yeah, basically the question asks like community uses that are proximate to the site. So we,
It's helpful.
yeah, we named like Murphy's Medical Center, there's the retirement community, something like the YMCA. It's like goods and, or not goods, but services that are kind of community based within
And it
1,500
contributes
feet.
to the, like, the walkability type of things that have, you know, which is a huge one, because there's childcare there
Mhm.
too, so.
Yeah,
anyway.
Understood.
It took me a while to figure out what the differences were in some of these, with the colors and all that. Some of it's just the way it prints, you know, and everything, and, I would love to see some wilder options. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so this, that was, yeah, we're here just
Some more
trying to figure
color.
out building
I see some
orientation
color
and
would
that.
be-
Yeah.
We're gonna,
that's-
we'll blow you away with renderings and everything that will literally give you perspectives from the lake.
Sure.
Excuse me. And, I just submitted these just to show you kind of how it can change. Doesn't really show it on that, but when you see it on the digital file, you know, how much
Yeah.
it does make a difference.
And you can
just
play
the
with
colors.
it, you
Yeah.
know,
And,
Yeah, I've seen lately, like a lot of, like, was doing like complementing colors, like different parts are
yeah,
popping out with different, multiple colors on the same building.
right.
yeah.
To kind of give it a little more, even more dimension.
And so we've had internal discussions of, you know, is it bold or is it kind of cleaner and white? And it's,
So, but where can you see these buildings?
From each other.
Yeah.
Well, I understand that,
Yeah.
I understand
So,
that.
On the road a little bit.
Which is
When we
a-
originally talked, we did
Which
a
is gonna
couple
have to do with rentability, right?
Yeah.
The aesthetically pleasing portion of that has to do with whether they're rentable, because whether they're visual from the,
Right,
then
and
it
some
makes
of that
sense.
will be a market, you know, they may
Yeah.
do a market study
Yeah.
on
Right.
what works, and, you know, I know that grays and whites and black fenestration and all that kind of stuff is super trendy right now, but I'm not so sure that that calls for the long run with things, you know?
We can show you lots of different options. It's just-
And I'm not so sure that it's as important to what we all feel personally as to what
The
works with
market.
the character of the community and what works with the market. With keeping in mind that trendy stuff kind of doesn't last and be trendy.
Yeah. it will be
Um,
trendy.
I love the water table with the stone. I think it hides everything really well. I like the building lines. I think all of that works really well. The, you know, the building face moving in and out. Something that I think I'm seeing, but that always kind of bothers me about these facilities is that a, air access hatch for the HVAC, are they unit by unit?
Yes.
Is there any way to make that not there? They look cheap to me.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
What are you talking about?
I mean.
Or hide it?
Aaron, stuff.
Erin, what are you talking about?
I
Are you looking at the
The,
drawing or
just
just?
want to describe it better.
Because, they're all electric,
Yeah.
so that's kind of what lends itself to
Those little white boxes,
having to have these grills on the outside, so you're.
it's the air exchange for the HVAC systems, which are individual per unit. But I always find that they look like a hotel.
Yeah, so they're like mesh packs. I mean, that's the way that the HVAC is designed.
That-
Yeah.
There's no way to,
I don't think you can do it any other way.
well, I don't know. I'm sure you can, but cost.
Yeah, the only option that we have done in some places is the color of the grill itself. So if all of your building accent trim is white and your vinyl siding is gray, making that grill white makes it stick out a lot more than if you were to match it with a similarly colored siding.
Right.
Um,
I mean, the other thing you can do too is frame it like a window.
Yep.
And
No, you can
make it look like a window.
Yeah.
That works too
this is your
sometimes.
other project.
yeah, so
And I
like this
think
is
that-
the project that I'm doing in Cicero, so this is older colors.
I like those old
It's
colors.
by the lake, you know,
There you
so
I think you're pointing out this too, which is the
yeah, so that's.
Yeah.
units, so the, you know, blue matches the blue.
Where is this in Cicero?
Right in the South Shore, like right up on Lake Shore, right?
Make sure.
So if you make them match the height and line of the windows on this project, you know, if you were to frame it out like a window and then have it a darker gray, like a window screen,
Yeah.
it almost looks less obtrusive, even though you're making it more of an element. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
I mean, it's just something maybe SketchUp could, just to see what it looks like, out of curiosity. Because otherwise it looks kind of like a hotel, those things. And anyway, so that was something. So,
And then one thing that's gonna happen when we deal with grades is it's not gonna be perfect like this, you know, so
Right.
the grades are gonna go up and down. You're gonna see some of the great garage and you might not see some of it, you know, on the other side of the building, just the way that. the
Yeah,
grades
so
are.
when we've seen this before, Charlie, I mean, that was going through my head too, is people that try to balance the site. And potentially in some of these areas, I noticed you show green space up front, but I mean, is the rest of this area open to future development based on cuts and fills and balancing on site?
No, I think the way that, and I've seen some of that contemplated, like filling in huge portions of the pond, the
Yeah, 'cause it was
slopes.
not jurisdictional.
So that you could get a 60-foot right of way with single family home lots on both sides of it, like some of these things were gross, you know, earthwork. What we have focused on is the more developable area,
Okay.
that's basically this square in the back of the site. Along the access road, there's probably gonna be slopes, so you can still see the water, but we're not trying to do what they were doing, I guess. The access road would be slightly higher, so the two front buildings, probably sit a few feet higher than the rear building, but there's not a lot of grade change. I mean, there's hills and bumps that exist out there because it was an old quarry, but that's the flattest spot of the site. And what Charlie was saying is that as you come in, portions of the garage on that access road being the higher side, maybe a partial buried basement where it would walk out on the backside of the project, so we can sort of make it up with the building itself. But we've looked at it, but you're not gonna get a lot of other developable area. I think there's a small piece that we call the peninsula that could support an apartment building that we did show in some of the concepts. But again, the cost of putting that building there, it's remote. Now you have to pump sewer to it. You have to improve the roadway all the way to it. The cost of building those 20 or 30 units was not worth, at this point, the expense. You know, maybe it could be developed in the future if the roads connect and some other things, but really the focus was just that, the developable area that exists there today.
Ryan,
I'll let,
I have a question.
Sure.
I've got an apartment in the bank unit, and I'd like to have a gathering in the clubhouse. Possible to walk from the bank unit to the clubhouse?
Correct. So we put sort of a pedestrian walkway right down the middle of the site. So this is kind of the main lobby. And right down through the parking lot and all the way to the clubhouse. Obviously, we're missing things like crosswalk striping and signage that you'll see on some future plans, but there's a pedestrian corridor that takes out these parking spaces so that there's a continuous pathway from the roof building straight through to the clubhouse.
It's open.
Yeah.
Okay. In the winter time, is it possible to go through the other buildings at the garage level? So you can stay indoors?
So they would be, we probably wouldn't save any time. I'm sure, I don't know how the key carded access will work if you can get into a man door in those garages, but you'd have to basically traverse, you know, if you're coming out of this garage, you'd have to walk across the sidewalk and then come through the garage and then somehow come out the top. I guess it would be a long way around.
Okay.
I don't have an answer for it, but, certainly everybody, the whole intent is to get everybody to the clubhouse, sort of as like the main focal point of the project.
The garage space is heated in the buildings, in the apartment buildings?
That's probably something that we haven't thought about yet, but
garage spaces in the buildings, no, they will not be heated.
Okay.
there's a lot of
Spaces
ventilation.
outside are not gonna be heated either.
No.
Okay.
Correct.
Storage spaces for the apartment owners?
So we have excess parking. So part of what we thought about is that, and we've been through this on a lot of other projects where we offer garages, especially even something like a townhome, right? Somebody's gonna put all their junk in the garage in the townhome and park in the driveway. So there's some that we double stacked. So if you had, you know, a parking garage, you have a parking space. There's not a lot of area to do that on all of them, but we do have excess parking. So I think on the order of,
But the current floor plans that we're working on do have small, 8x4 storage facilities on each floor.
so there would be small, yeah, like closet type storage spaces, but,
I was thinking about people moving from their home in Manlius.
Yeah.
But they want to get rid of all that stuff. And they want to move into an apartment. How much stuff can they bring? The answer is not much.
not much. You're an apartment, yeah, now you're living in an apartment. So my purpose of stating the garages was that there are instances where people will choose to park outside even though they've rented a garage, right? So we have built into the parking count, about 75 to 80 extra surface parking spaces so that there isn't sort of this issue of people only using the garage. And now obviously that's an enforcement thing, and we've had other clients do that as well, where as part of your lease, you've committed to parking physically in that garage. I don't think we want to get to controlling that, because sometimes it makes sense if somebody has a motorcycle or something, they're gonna park their motorcycle in the garage and park the car outside, do whatever you want, but let's make sure that the parking counts aren't short so that we can accommodate flexibility like that.
Does this come with a built-in HOA?
Ownership wise,
Well, it's all in one ownership, right?
yeah,
It's
one project, one parcel.
Right. Does it have an HOA?
No, because it's not being sold.
Yeah,
It's gonna be run as an apartment.
your apartments, nobody owns.
Okay.
yeah, the apartment owner would be the maintenance person.
I'm gonna ask the three questions I ask all the time.
Sure.
Has there been a resolution with an easement across what used to be commercial parcels to get that emergency access easement?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
I got something in my email today.
I was
This
thinking
very
about
day.
what we were thinking about tonight. I go, Jamie asked me to send that 2 months ago.
So, I
And
haven't looked at it
granted, it's been finalized and signed, and because we're gonna be closing here in the next few weeks.
Okay, curb cut with the county? And traffic light.
Yeah, so
Those are my three standard questions.
yeah, so I think at one point there was actually a TIS that was submitted for 300 apartments from
the previous owner.
Okay.
So we're updating that. They should be taking their traffic counts here shortly, just because they weren't able to do it over the past few weeks. But with the next submission, we're gonna have a traffic impact study. Initial thoughts is there's gonna be minimal impact. And it's just changing some of the stuff out in the verdict.
Yeah, it'd be minimal because it's an emergency access, really.
Oh, you're saying that?
That lower, the southern one.
Oh, that, yeah, I mean, you can't even contemplate that. That'll just have a crash gate for a fire department to unlock if they needed to get in and out of there. You as an apartment person, you wouldn't be able to tap in that.
While we're talking about that, how are you gonna grade that?
It will follow the existing topography.
There's some pretty gnarly,
There's one spot where we sort of have to get from a lower elevation to where the Hall Road was.
yeah,
that will
like
have to
right,
be
right
graded.
here, I was
Yeah.
like, wow, that impact could be massive. I just was curious, like,
So we looked at that, and when we had our phone call with Aqua, their concern was that transition of grade does not take place over their easement.
of course,
So where we cross the easement, we will maintain grade so that we're not filling on top of their trunk sewer.
right,
And we put it, you can almost see where the red line is kind of angled, that
Yeah.
matches with the easement that Charlie's filed with the seller, so
it was
there's,
more just north of there, like right at that intersection, because once you're up on top, it's.
once you're on top, you're on
Yeah.
top, so there'll be a, probably an 80-foot transition to take that out. 10% max grade is for a fire truck, like an aerial apparatus access, so that area in and of itself will be graded, but that's not in the floodplain and not part of the floodway and all the other things that he was complicating down there.
So,
And the yellow on here, I'm just seeing the yellow, those are the trails. That
Yeah.
you're proposing.
Yep, I think our intent is gonna be to continue that along the north so that it connects with the mixed use and probably connects out to what may become future sidewalks along North Burdick Street, but there is almost, there's a drainage ditch that crosses North Burdick that we have to come over, and I am not comfortable with sort of showing where it's gonna be like the mountain goat climb type of thing, and how the trail actually works there and how we grade it is gonna be part of the grading plan. But having a trail that kind of connects each one of the components is what we're thinking about there.
And so I assume there's gonna be a rental office, like, is that gonna be in the
In the
clubhouse?
clubhouse, yeah,
Okay.
leasing office, yeah.
So I noticed very clearly delineated green space in a couple places. How come the rest of the area is not delineated as green space if we're not building there?
Well, it can be. We could color it green. I mean, it's not, parts of it are green today, parts of it are stone, so the color that you see.
Yeah, a lot of it's cemented gravels, yeah.
I think what we were intending is that when you drive this frontage now, aside from that, there's a couple kind of individual, single-family homes that need to be taken down. There's a lot of brush and a lot of other things that could be cleaned up, and then this could become more of like an actual green space so that you can see the project instead of just having to look through what's been an overgrown and underutilized quarry for so long. How that connects to the sidewalk system too, so maybe there's landscaping areas here and benches or seating or something could be part of it. It wasn't to purposely exclude some of the other grass and green space that exists throughout the site.
What about, safety? Like the quarry is lovely. I was up there only once, but it's a little scary.
So were you up there partying?
Yeah, you
well, I mean, you can't wrap everybody, I mean, this is fun. People are gonna have to learn how to take care of themselves.
No, I know, but
So where we invite the public for something like a trail, I think it's important to know that if the trail is next to a steep slope, that we would provide some type of timber railing or something. But you also don't wanna put a fence just because there's a steep slope, it's kind of in the brush and in the woods type of thing, right? Just like Green Lakes, you kind of have a trail that kind of gets down there and it goes down into the, so that you can enjoy the water, but it's not like you're on a very rigid pathway, so.
are you gonna show that, those amenities that you're talking about, the railings and so forth, where there is a concern?
Yeah, I think we could pick on some of that. Haven't really got too far into the actual topography of where the trail traverses, so maybe it's a little bit higher in some spots and kind of where there's navigable areas that are closer to the water, we can get down there, but we can show some of that, yeah.
To that point, would it be, handicap accessible? Or would portions of it be handicap accessible and portions of it not be and have it be clearly signed?
Right, so
Because that
gonna,
kind of goes along with the,
I'm gonna attempt to answer this because when you look at a park-like setting, handicap accessibility is really a stone dust pathway, right? It may not be a concrete sidewalk, it's not something that we would want.
well, I mean more about slopes.
Yeah, I think portions of it should be accessible, even if it's the, the green circle loop and not the black diamond loop type of thing. But there's probably areas that would have steeper slopes that, just like a park would, that you kind of try and offer at least a spot in the destination with an outlook and a bench or something, and then maybe beyond that, there's another trail that loops the whole lake or something, but that there's a spot to go to and from with
That's good.
wheelchair or even strollers and stuff, even
Yeah.
if it's not accessible, it's still, I don't wanna haul the double wide stroller down the whole trail too, but let's get to and from something that is enjoyable, and maybe it's that area around the dock and sort of the water access next to the clubhouse, so that's a good point though.
And I
So,
know you're gonna have like, for the PUD, right, there's gonna be charging stations and stuff. That's
Yes.
mentioned in there.
Yep,
I think we're required to have 10 plugs.
so this is really wild.
Raise paper.
Well, you mentioned a clubhouse, so let's just take a step back. What are you gonna have in there? Leasing office, conference, meetings?
So this is mimicked off of what we're doing in Cicero. So one side is a fitness room, the center core is, conference room, leasing offices, bathrooms. On one side is a fairly large community room.
Okay.
In Cicero, it can hold 80 to 100 people, it's big. The fitness room is 3 times the size of this room.
Okay,
Maybe it's large.
so when I first opened the set and I'm looking and I thought, yay, but then it seems a shame in some ways that the buildings aren't like right on the water, if you will. These ones over here have a garage they're looking at the end of. I know you can't, I could pull it up there, but, so, like,
But just the first floor is higher than the
Right.
ground floor.
but last time I had a cat. So, is that mine? Like, these guys are looking and there's a garage there. And these guys are looking and they're looking at this parking lot and this roof of this building. What if you moved this, and so all the people in this building get to use the gym and all the stuff here. What if you moved this into the middle and surrounded it with some green space for the users who are looking outside? Because it sounds like a lot of the things that are going on inside that community building are not focused around the outside, looking outside.
I think it's very much focused on the outside.
Is it?
I think when you look at that clubhouse, all the meeting rooms and everything else, you're gonna be staring at the pond. Off the backside of the clubhouse, there might even be a grand deck where you can sort of enjoy the
okay.
deck and look at the deck.
So it's gonna be oriented for that
Yes,
benefit.
and it's only a single story, so we have a garage on the first floor. Basically, we have 4 levels of residential units. They're all gonna be looking out over all that activity over top of that.
It's looking out over the
Oh,
green.
yeah, that's really nice.
So both sides would kind of be focused
Okay.
on it.
Because the reason I thought that is it's like, I didn't know how much use was going on, because sometimes the clubhouse becomes a core in these types of developments, and you see a lot of them down south, right, retirement communities. The clubhouse becomes more of a core that the buildings are spoke around of.
Yeah.
And then because they spend a lot of time in their homes as the retirees versus out in their jobs all day, they are looking out their windows and seeing all this stuff more. And if you push the buildings to the extreme edges, and then your core community use is in the middle, then you have green space around that to provide visual interest and cooling. Then you have your parking in between. And, that's just kind of, when I looked at it and I took a step back again, that it makes it a lot easier to get to. I'm only saying this because you're at concept
This
level.
is,
I wouldn't
this is.
say it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think if you did have
Community.
ponds, then yeah, but I think the community, clubhouse is only gonna benefit from.
But I like what you're saying in that the use is inside the clubhouse.
Yeah, I remember what you
Towards
said
that.
in the very beginning too, where it was gonna hopefully use maybe then you're right close to the dock and water access
Yeah.
and everything, yeah. I think it makes sense.
I like that.
Where it is, yeah.
So this building I measured is 45 by 65. And I think that there's a lot of opportunities there to have things that those people are gonna wanna use.
The
And
house
then-
building?
No, this building.
Oh, okay.
And I'm wondering if you couldn't even put another one here. Because when you start to name off all the things that people in these things want, the coffee shop, what else did you said a couple.
Even like office, like a personal office or something, if I'm
A
gonna have,
barber shop,
yeah,
like
ice cream stand
ice
or
cream
something,
stand,
yeah.
like, you could fit more things there.
We can
Right.
we can put a lot more on this site, but,
Well, you're used to it, but no, I'm just
Yeah.
throwing that out there, like, you're working on the numbers and stuff, but I
They
think
can
like,
come back for modified
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you
plan
said
as
you
well.
weren't sure how big that building
Right,
was
so
gonna be.
the
and
space is certainly available there almost to do a mirror image if there's, yeah, certainly, right, we come back and we have the space,
Mm-hmm.
it's certainly permissible within the district plan to have. I think we only had a minimum threshold, but that's part of the mixed use area, so that would be perfectly fine if there's enough tenants that wanna, some of it, excuse me, might come into like, it's hard to get somebody to go there until you have the apartments, and then somebody says, well,
Mhm.
hey, I kinda wanna bring my office there, I wanna bring my retail shop there, or my barber shop or something, now that there's people there. Sometimes it's hard to sell that type of space unless something exists where you can
Right.
sort of see, and then.
Yeah,
having
actually, that
another-
reminds me of a question I had earlier. Are there gonna be phases that you're doing, or are you gonna do it all at once?
so right now, this is planned for more or less one phase. Granted, the larger buildings will be brought online as they're finished,
Mhm.
but you'll be working on the other two, unless the last.
So one phase, when you think about the approval and proceeding with construction, but the occupancy of each building, because each building, you start a foundation, and then as it working with wood framing, you start the other foundation, the occupancy will be staged, but it'll all be one phase of construction.
And then with the mixed use, maybe that's secondary? Is it?
I think that's fair, unless you.
You gotta see how it
We'll
goes.
get them approved, but, it's gonna take quite a long time to
Mhm.
build it. and-
Yeah.
And get it approved and get it financed, so.
I think the PUDs, I'm sorry, but I was just gonna say, I think the PUD allows them 4 phases.
Okay.
that's what it said.
Yeah.
And maybe one of the things, and this is more a question, I guess, for how it all works, but I would hate to see them put in a nice sidewalk all the way to Burdick and have it not go anywhere. Because I don't know if y'all have noticed people walking up and down the side of the road on Burdick, it's awful. People are waiting for their car to get serviced and they're like, I'm gonna walk down and do some stuff, and it's like
Mhm.
awful. So how does it work they bring all of this here, and then how does the sidewalk get from there down to town center?
You can ask the town board about that.
Yeah. it's,
Yeah.
They
Yeah,
have formal.
they had a whole sidewalk.
Right, but
And-
I believe it's in the works,
Yeah.
it's so,
like from a planning perspective, and I think it's with the town and county, but.
Yeah.
okay,
So it's been 6-7 months since we looked at the.
Yeah,
the
and what
site.
better leverage to have again, than
Recommendation.
now the project,
Mhm.
whatever, 4 or 5 months from now, the project's approved, the project exists, we're building the project, and now the money placement happens more so than just, hey, we kind of want to connect the
okay.
trail to town center, it's like, oh, well, what's in between it, retirement community, nobody's walking there, so
Yeah,
that's.
it's a county right away.
Well, it's more like, these things don't end up meshing sometimes, or you get like the folks that were here earlier who are like, we have a problem in our neighborhood, or, it's the kind of thing you hear people complaining about in the store, they're like, oh, I really would, they built that great thing, but you can't get there, blah, 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 and years go by.
Right.
And so it's like, I hate to see this fall through.
I think the bigger push will be the connection to the other side of the creek. That's,
I just think, how did bridge across the canal get built by the state with no pedestrian component or cycling component to it? Does anybody know that? It's so frustrating. Listen, I walk there quite a bit. I have a mother-in-law at the town center.
I'm sorry,
I had
can you tell us who you are?
Pardon?
I'm sorry, can you tell us who you are?
Oh.
And I
So Don,
certified vehicle.
that's a great
It's
question.
the most astonishing.
That's absolutely astonishing.
So which bridge?
Pardon?
Which are you,
So-
what are you talking
Where it goes over the canal.
So that's a great,
Intersection, see the-
so that's a great comment, right?
You
We
can't
have the
walk there
same,
safely, you certainly can't walk there safely.
so that's a great question.
It is astonishing screw up.
That is a screw up on Region 3 DOT. If you go through several communities in central New York, that's consistent with their policies. And the towns do not have any input. They act unitarily, and it's very difficult to deal with this region.
It is,
Okay.
watch this project and see this sidewalk come up to that intersection at the light at the medical center. Signalize that, pedestrian will go across to where? You can't get south, you can't go
Yes.
north, and the sidewalks on either side.
So the sidewalks on Burdick Street
That
should not be a big issue. Generally speaking, with what the county policy is, and I
Yeah,
don't,
they wanna connect that whole
and I don't know,
area as part
you
of
know,
their
where the town board is with that, but
plan on.
generally speaking, the county will give a municipality a access agreement if they take on all liability and maintenance
That's
moving
true.
forward.
Yeah,
Right.
even small pieces of sidewalk that we've added to like Thompson Road in the town of New Ware or
Exactly.
whatever, they have the
Exeter
ability
Street, Thompson
for the
Road,
town to accept it.
Yep.
And I mean, what better place, like, how many people travel the Erie Canal Trail System,
Right.
right, since they've
well,
connected?
the
It
other
is
thing,
a stone's throw
the
from
other
town
thing
center.
the other thing to think about with this project, and we've talked about it before, when other projects have come up in this area, is there was a fatality on this road. Somebody walking in the street,
Oh, really?
yes, less than a
Not
year ago.
surprised, I guess.
Yeah.
It was very sad.
Yeah, and this is part of, like, Onondaga County's plan on, they wanna, that's one of their highlighted, this area is one of their
Yep.
highlighted areas, so,
But you gotta have a
So
node to
yeah.
connect to, and this.
yeah. And like you
PUD
said,
is
the other
likely the node to
projects,
hopefully trigger
yeah.
people saying, wow, we've been saying that for the last 2
Right.
years, that we're gonna connect everything, and.
Yeah.
You could draw a map on what this would connect to.
and we did it, we're doing it across the street.
Yep.
With those properties.
Right.
So, yeah, we just need the rest to match up, but like,
So,
little by little.
I think it's great what, you know, I know you're just kind of looking for feedback and trying to keep it all moving and, I think that it's good. I think that the views are gonna be great and I think it's nice to use the lake, the water as an asset. It would be awesome to come up with something nice to have going on right here. It almost seems like that spot got left open on purpose. Because as the entry to the site, you know, visually something, you know, is there? And this is what you see these across the water, but
I'm gonna
I don't
say
know.
that it got left out of the green shading, because at one point we had townhomes or mixed use, we
yeah, I
had something.
remember.
We had something that was placed there, but it's
Mhm.
way too complicated to get people in and out, you're so
Well, I don't
proximate to
need
that.
something necessarily that's like got parking and vehicle access, and like something unique and signature that makes this site have its own unique flavor, like something related to the way it's named or to the history of the area or like a visual milestone.
A big old
art.
dredge, like a relic of a dredge or something out there.
I mean, it's something beautiful, but yet interesting, like it
Yeah.
could even just
Big old
be
rock.
marked as a artwork, set, like, no, something special that makes this special, not just, units. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
The creative, but it's just begging for something to happen right there.
You see my rendering, so I'm not very creative, so I'm open to suggestions.
I think I've overstepped the line already tonight, so.
Well, no, I
We're
think,
happy-
I
we're happy to
think,
discuss.
yeah, I think it's going in a great direction. I think
So I think
everybody
the big-
agrees to keep
yeah.
going.
So
Yeah,
the biggest thing is like building layouts, like that's kind of what this focus was for us in order to get to that next step, so.
Yeah. I think it show, yeah, I think
Doug, do you have
the
any
views
comments on
work
building layout with plan?
with what you're restricted with.
I don't think so. I don't think until we start getting into details, right? Because that legislation that I read at really leaves it quite flexible.
Mhm.
So it's probably open to building code issues more than anything else at this point.
And that was the
Right.
bulk of the work since then was, taking what we know, appropriate unit count, viable for the project, taking it back to length and width, chop this building up. Actually, we tried to have the building be duplicated 3 different times, but it just wasn't even possible. So there's different ways that the units need to lay out within each building, so it kind of became more of a custom thing, but,
So I
you look at building footprints.
I think it's gonna come down to, basic standards like MUTCD type, turning movements for parking.
They're all 26-foot access aisles for aerial apparatus access, so there's some fire code things we've already thought about, how you get in and out of the garage, being on the end caps versus perhaps having one of them be on the side. We've looked at like a ton of different things like that, but,
It'd be nice to look at the garages, because we, if you go up and look, here in town, if you look at Burbeck, the garages are pretty bad. But, right,
Yeah.
Burbank?
Yeah.
yeah,
Which one you talking about?
the ones way in the back,
What are you talking about, Wayne's
the ones way in the back, where they step, and it's tough to even get a car in.
oh, I see what you mean, the detached garages, right, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Right,
well, you need to, that all has to be well thought out, and even with the regular parking garages, the coordination with the structural stuff is huge, and,
All right,
Can we wrap?
I think we are ready to
wait.
go. You guys have enough?
Yeah, no, that was good.
Okay.
I mean, really, this was exactly what we needed, was just an open dialogue. We didn't want to come in with piles of paperwork and say, the building should be brown instead of gray or something. So having, and then when we get updates, whether it's for the next meeting or whatever, you're gonna see them, because I think it's important to get that feedback as we go along, right?
I know what I was gonna ask, the stormwater management, you're gonna do quantity control in the basement, right? And then do quality somewhere underground up top?
Right, so the pond itself has a very consistent water level. It kind of like accepts water, and the water level never undulates. So that would be our quantity storage, but we do have pre-treatment upstream that we have to still account for.
So you'll go underground with your quality up top
Yes.
and then just go into the basement?
Yep,
after that.
exactly.
Perfect.
All right,
This layout is much better than the previous.
Where we started, I know, every time it'll get better.
Don't forget the pickleball, everybody wants to.
Yeah, the pickleball. We just opened up, I think it was.
Right now, the
all
motion,
right, I'm ready for a motion.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
I second it. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.